Chapter 1188, The Collision of the Two Worlds. Chapter 1188, The Collision of the Two Worlds. Haig, Kang Yoon, and Audrey lifted their head to watch while their god bodies were confined. They couldn't move. Under them were Cecilia, Phelps, MIA, the god warriors, and the experts of the big star areas. They all lifted their heads to watch the sky and saw the two eligible young men, Shi Yang and Hasan. No one had thought that Desolate would accept these two. They thought that Haig and Audrey had better chances. However, the reality was too far away from their guess. However, they suddenly could accept this fact. As Shi Yang was a member of the immortal demon clan with the origin and the inheritance of the bloodthirsty force, such a character was eligible to get the Genesis fruit. Hasan was the best warrior of his generation in the Charteris family of the God clan. His performance was extraordinary in Desolate. Somehow, he had surpassed Haig. Hasan's characteristics included bloodthirstiness, brutality, heartlessness, and he was inhumane. Such a character was no doubt the most extreme. No one could ignore him. Thinking carefully, everyone knew that it was logical when Desolate recognized him. Today, under the Genesis fruit, the two of them were releasing their soul altars and fighting the last battle to seize the Genesis fruit. Everybody waited silently. They had stopped fighting each other to focus and see who would be the one that would change the structure of this cosmos, Shi Yang or Hasan. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Shi Yang's bright ethereal extent arose behind his back. The dazzling suns, moons, and stars created the vast galaxies, which looked so real. A crystal soul altar hovered in this galaxy-like ethereal extent as the core of its soul. Sizzle, sizzle. A burning world like a purgatory emerged above Hasan's head. It was his ethereal extent. Hasan's ethereal extent was filled with thick blood. The vivid red sky and the shattered, smoking mountains. It looked like burning hell. His world had the energy of death and corpse chi with endless burning intent. Between the two ethereal extents was a co-soul with surging energy. It was shaking as it was struggling with two different auras. The strange thing was that Hasan's ethereal extent also had a strong suction force to the co-soul. It was unbelievable to other people. Even Shi Yang felt that it was strange. His co-soul had his soul seal and it was developed from the heaven flames. Usually, the co-soul listened to him. In fact, it happened that way. He could control the co-soul as he pleased. But it was different now. Hasan's appearance seemed to have given his co-soul another option. Hasan somehow had a subtle connection with the co-soul. He pondered and something popped up in his mind. Desolate. Desolate was controlling everything discreetly. His co-soul had fused with the origin of Grace Mainland, which had been detached from Desolate. So technically, it was part of Desolate. Desolate had the capacity to control his co-soul. This place was especially the territory of Desolate. If Desolate chose Hasan to fight Shi Yang, it would create a fair environment by cutting off his advantages. As soon as he considered this possibility, he had an idea that he wanted to try to test his assumption. He used the devouring power Upanishad to urge the black hole and aimed at Hasan's soul altar. It was the power Upanishad of the bloodthirsty master. He had tested it before. No soul altar could resist the black hole. As long as it flew out of the body, the black hole could absorb it. This power Upanishad had brought him the marvelous benefit that he couldn't describe. Right now, he was going to use it to deal with Hasan. A wild suction force came from the black hole and aimed at Hasan. Strangely, Hasan wasn't affected. Both of his ethereal extent and soul altar were fine. They didn't even move. It seemed like an invisible force had distorted his power Upanishad and made the devouring power ineffective. Shi Yang discolored in fear. Then, he got it. He understood that Desolate had controlled everything. The world tree was just a part of Desolate. In this world, Desolate was the law and the principles of powers Upanishad. Desolate was the God and the way of virtue and justice. Desolate was the fountainhead of the entire universe. This conception made Shi Yang drop his jaw in awe. Who else besides nature itself could deactivate the bloodthirsty master's devouring power Upanishad? You're right. Desolate is nature. It's the way of virtue and justice. Desolate holds the fountainhead of powers Upanishads. The ring spirit's voice arose timely in his soul. All powers Upanishads, the truth and essence of this world come from this planet. It's the greatest out of everything in nature. It's the law. And the most terrifying thing is that Desolate has consciousness and intelligence. It has the will of life that's different from anything else. No one knows what it thinks. Why does the blood sword seem to be similar to the holy mountain? And why could it make the mountain bleed? Shi Yang hurried to ask. This holy mountain shields the world tree. It was the body of the precursor from the immortal demon clan. The sword in your hand was made of his spine. Of course, they have some connection, answered the ring spirit. Oh boy. Shi Yang couldn't help but utter. He knew that 100,000 years ago, the first generation of experts of the 4 ancient continents had come to this place and tried to refine Desolate and change the rule of nature. It allowed themselves to create the way of virtue and justice. Of course, the 4 of them had buried their bodies here. The incipient extent of the God clan's precursor had turned into a miniature version of the world that Shi Yang had taken and carved into his ethereal extent, which had boosted him to 3rd sky of ethereal god realm. The remains of the holy beast white tiger of the heavenly monster tribe had turned into a mountain range, which Kang Yun had found and taken its essence. The soul of the imperial dark tribe's precursor had turned into an icy blue halo that covered Desolate and prevented any warrior from intruding. It had become Desolate's protection. The god body of the immortal demon clan's precursor was refined. It became the holy mountain in the center, which was the armor of the world tree. The blood sword in his hand was surprisingly the spine of that immortal demon precursor. No wonder why it looked similar to the holy mountain and could even trigger the mountain. If the blood sword was the spine of that precursor, who was the bloodthirsty master? How could he control this sword? When this thought emerged, Shi Yang's soul altar started to tremble. This thought had stirred up his mind to the point where he had almost lost connection with his ethereal extent. It was because Harsen's soul altar, which was controlling the burning purgatory, had approached him. The terrifying power of things from hell came from Harsen's ethereal extent that forcefully intruded Shi Yang's ethereal extent and brought an apocalypse to his ethereal extent. Harsen wanted to destroy Shi Yang's ethereal extent. It was Harsen's attack. Stay focused and deal with Harsen first. The ring spirit thundered in his head. Shi Yang temporarily put aside his chaotic thoughts. He pulled himself together and became placid. Seeing Harsen's earth-destroying purgatory arrive, Shi Yang immediately urged his soul altar to change the world he had controlled. In his universe, the suns and moons released dazzling lights that shined on the coming purgatory world. Harsen's world had a crimson, burning sky and the bleeding ground had many wounds. The mountains shattered while the sea was seething crazily. Countless meteors ignited and fell onto the ground inside Harsen's world, attempting to destroy everything. The meteors were hissing through the sky and then it plowed the ground and created many deep ditches like the teeth of a comb. Lava surged from those ditches and tried to melt down everything. It was doomsday. Harsen had caused this deadly catastrophe and sent it into Shi Yang's ethereal extent. He wanted to ruin Shi Yang's ethereal extent and turn it into ashes. Harsen stayed in his purgatory world, his soul energy fluctuation more terrifying. His soul altar also emitted tremendous energy fluctuations. Harsen had mastered his burning purgatory power Upanishad and this world was being burned down like doomsday, which was matched with his power Upanishad. It could provide him with endless energy. Quite the contrary, as Shi Yang's galaxy with countless stars got attacked by meteors, shattering mountains, and seas in Harsen's world, he felt exhausted as if he couldn't endure it for a long time. This was a battle between the soul altars where the ethereal extents wore each other out and used a world to destroy the other. It was much more deadly and dangerous than using the body to fight. From the ground, the other warriors could see the 2 ethereal extents like 2 projections in the sky. Watching the collisions happening above their heads, they held their breath and wore panic-stricken countenances. This battle was so terrifying that it got beyond their imagination. Harsen and Shi Yang's ethereal extents were colliding and attacking each other, giving them the scene of an apocalypse. They all thought that they would be obliterated. If Harsen wins, His ethereal extent with the power of the doomsday will devour all of us, said Shang Yingyu, her head lowered. Everybody was shocked. The warriors became aghast and anxious. They quietly urged their power. The fantasy worlds of mountains, seas, deserts, and forests emerged above their heads. They were ready for the oncoming battle. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Shortly after, the suns and moons in Shi Yang's ethereal extent spun and moved into a magical formation. It looked like some divine formation. Using the suns, moons, and stars as the basis and the star power Upanishad as principles, the formation that Shi Yang created could shake the entire world. Shi Yang's entire ethereal extent was changing. The suns, moons, and stars were moving into different marvelous patterns with the everlasting star power. When the earth and heaven aren't extinguished and the stars are everlasting, I will never be taken down. A mutter echoed in Shi Yang's soul, altar like an angel's statement that showed the assured faith that could shake the whole world. Chapter 1189, The Burning Karma Flame. Chapter 1189, The Burning Karma Flame. When earth and heaven and the stars aren't extinguished, I will never extinguish. Shi Yang's voice was low-pitched at first. After he said these words, the echo reverberated unceasingly. The echo expanded and it was grumbling like thunderclaps that cracked the sky, reaching every corner of his world of the galaxy. His words were like the hand of the Creator from the mighty heaven blooming in his magnificent galaxy. The shattered world was repaired. The mountains and lakes reappeared. The sea calmed down. The ancient trees and floras were revived. Wherever his voice passed, his world had quieted down rapidly. In his world with the galaxy, the suns and moons moved and carried out the will of earth and heaven, echoing his voice and giving it endless power. It was the magical secret technique that snatched the right of the Creator. This world was his ethereal extent. He could do anything he pleased. In this area, he could create the sky and earth, making water or fire. He could make the earthquake with his thoughts easily. When his soul altar spins, the death and life, space, and star power Upanishad took turns to appear and perform their best abilities. The doomsday-like purgatory of Harsan's ethereal extent halted. It was confined and even the apocalypse it brought was frozen. Impossible. How could it be? Haig screamed. He had lost his placid visage and his eyes were filled with shock. MIA, Phelps, and the god warriors were dumbstruck as if they were watching something unbelievable. They dropped their jaws in awe. Audrey, Kang Yun, and the others gawked as if they couldn't believe what they saw with their eyes. They all looked at the new changes in Shi Yang's ethereal extent. The suns, moons, and stars in his ethereal extent were moving in some marvelous trajectories. They had generated countless mysterious and fantasy images. The other warriors could see the life cycle of the sun, moon, and star from birth to death. They could even see existing principles of other things in this world. The sequences of images were projecting the cradle and development of creatures in the vast universe. They looked lively and incredibly surreal. It was the world created by the death and life, space, and star power Upanishads. They had developed the entire life cycle of life from the beginning to the end. What made Haig and the god warriors stunned was the change of the suns, moons, and stars. This change had the same effect with a lost secret technique of the god clan's light power Upanishad. Even Haig, the genius using light power Upanishad, couldn't decode this mysterious supernatural power. He couldn't get the essence of it. In principle, that supernatural power had been lost in the river of history. It shouldn't appear in this mortal world. However, it seemed like Shi Yang could use this power currently. It was a big humiliation to Haig and his god clansmen. How could Shi Yang use the essence power that Haig, the top warrior of the new generation of the god clan, couldn't learn? How could they swallow this insult? Most of the warriors couldn't stay calm. They felt surprised and their eyes were panic-stricken and misty. Only one of them had sobered quickly. He acted as if he had understood the reason. It was Kang Yun. From the remains of his holy ancestor, he seemed to know the secret of that ancient time. He knew the precursor of the god clan who had buried his body here, his incipient extent becoming part of desolate forever. He could tell that Shi Yang had encountered the mysteries of that precursor's incipient extent. That precursor was the expert of the first generation of warriors that ancient god continent had given birth to. His soul had the essence of light power Upanishad. He got Desolate's approval indeed. Kang Yun was stunned. It turns out that it's the light creator secret technique of our clan. Hassan's dark and heavy voice sounded as if it came from somewhere far away. His soul moved on the soul altar above the sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness looked like a thick, electric meshnet that was connected to his ethereal extent, which was showing the doomsday. Due to the change of the suns, moons, and stars, the wave of destroying purgatory from Hassan halted as it was invading Shi Yang's ethereal extent. The attack of his apocalypse couldn't attack Shi Yang's ethereal extent more. Hassan's soul was like it had just felt a lightning attack. It smoked and another power of evilness was generated in Hassan's world. Boom! Hassan's ethereal extent was being burned. A fierce, unknown karma flame was burning and expanding at an incredible speed. This kind of karma flame could burn space, world, planets, and even the sea. Hassan's ethereal extent was burned. Shi Yang's ethereal extent, which was being invaded, also burned. Shi Yang's soul began to weaken fast. His soul was tamed with the flame. As his ethereal extent burned, his soul and soul altar were both affected. He couldn't endure this kind of powerfully destructive blaze. This kind of flame had the power to destroy the world with evilness that nothing could extinguish. No one knew when Hassan got this flame, but they all panicked from seeing it. Haig wasn't an exception. As his compatibility with the flaming origin was beyond everyone else here, he discolored in fright after a slight sense. This flame has the aura of Desolate. It's the flame that Hassan got from Desolate. It's also a heaven flame, the heaven flame of Desolate's origin. Only the ancient continent could give birth to the heaven flames of the origin. As Desolate was the key ancient continent, it definitely could have heaven flames. Hassan got its heaven flame. Countless years had passed and only he had this glory. He got the heaven flame from Desolate. From some aspect, he could be deemed as having the origin of Desolate. This was unbelievable. Hassan's ethereal extent was burning. The flame that could burn everything down was expanding. It reached Shi Yang's ethereal extent of galaxies. Shi Yang's ethereal extent was brilliant like a real galaxy with suns, moons, and stars with mountains, lakes, and floras. However, it was burning by Hassan's karma flame now. From Hassan's burning ethereal extent, the flame was expanding. And Shi Yang's soul altar was trembling hard. His host soul was a lamp in front of this strong wind. It flickered as if it was going to be extinguished in any minute. His situation was so critical. The ethereal extent and the soul altar were the roots of a warrior. They were much more important than the god body. Once they burned down, the seal and vestige of a warrior would be cleaned from this world. He would have no hope in resurrecting. If his body was destroyed, he could find another way to continue living. If the soul or the ethereal extent were destroyed, there was no way to be revived. Cecilia and Shong Yingyu were watching Shi Yang's ethereal extent burning from the ground. As they didn't know what to do, they felt so restless and anxious. All of a sudden, they soared up into the sky. Right at that moment, two lights descended from the sky like meteors that hit them. Blood splashed from Shong Yingyu's and Cecilia's bodies. They had no color in their faces. Their soul altars were weakened to the worst. They fell on the ground like feathers. They looked so helter-skelter with blood on their bodies. It was a punishment. They surrounded Cecilia and Shong Yingyu. They faced MIA, Phelps, and the other warriors of the God clan. They were afraid that those experts would seize the chance and kill them. "Hey! Are you okay?" Sho Jiao and Jiao Shan hurried to ask. Shong Yingyu and Cecilia had gotten hit once, but they seemed to lose all their power. They looked so feeble that they couldn't even talk. Some of them wanted to participate in the battle up there, but seeing their situation, they felt so chilled inside. They immediately abandoned that thought. Looking at the sky, they were filled with fear and respect. Their conditions aren't good. Wu Feng stormed over and said with a dark face, "Take every pellet we have to give them." We must keep their god bodies safe. As long as their god bodies are filled with blood chi, they will have enough energy to remain their souls. After hesitating for a while, they then took out spirit herbs and medicines that they found in the ancient continent for several years to feed Cecilia and Shang Yingyu. The spirit herbs and medicine that they had preserved until now were all sacred products to refill the god power or blood chi. Their therapeutic efficacy was really amazing. After Cecilia and Shang Yingyu were fed with pellets, some colors on their faces finally resumed and their wounds were secure. Shi Yang's world was being burned down. His soul altar was spinning restlessly. His host soul was draining. He could even see Shang Yingyu and Cecilia get struck and fall as they were trying to help him. They looked like they were dying. He should be outraged. However, he knew that rage couldn't do anything. He had to be calm to overturn this situation. Shi Yang chose to press down his anger and to subside his negative moods. He tried to restrain his thoughts and find a way to break out of this situation. The abilities of death and life, star, and space powers Upanishad emerged in his head. He wanted to search for a method to break this situation. As his soul altar was shaken and his ethereal extent was burned, his powers Upanishads were about to cease. He was going to lose control soon. A cold air emerged in his head. His mind flickered and his soul quietly drew something from his ethereal extent. A pitch-black bead was drawn out of a corner in the ethereal extent. It was the poison-dipped cold bead and the soul's crystallization of the departed spirit jellyfish. It was the extraordinarily poisonous and icy object. It could gather the toxins and only the heaven flames could refine it. A plan quickly formed in his head. Sizzle. 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 The cold and poisonous power of the poison-dipped cold bead was urged. Shortly after, his ethereal extent had a new change. It felt like the real departed spirit jellyfish was floating there and releasing the cold energy. The ethereal extent section that was being burned recovered after the icy power and the poison had entered. The icy and poisonous powers diffused in Shi Yang's ethereal extent. However, the flames of the origin were the nemesis of the departed jellyfish and its poison-dipped cold bead. Hassan's karma flame burst out, dissolving the poison and the cold energy from the bead. However, Shi Yang had seized the chance when the energy of the poison-dipped cold bead was dissolved to save his ethereal extent, his host soul, and the soul altar from the burning flame. He had a little bit of time to do something else. Chapter 1190. The World Purifying Light. Chapter 1190. The World Purifying Light. In the world as bright as a galaxy, the suns, moons, and stars changed again. Billions of light beams from the suns, moons, and stars shot out and congregated into one column. Billions of light beams from the suns, moons, and stars had fused into one column that was as big as an arm. That light column seemed to bring unlimited divine power. It was so dazzling that no one dared to observe it directly. No one even dared to use the soul consciousness to sense. This light column was the essence of the sunlight, moonlight, and starlight. It was some kind of utmost power in this world. It was the world purifying light that could purify the dirty world and destroy the soul. This world purifying light was the absolute power of the star power Upanishad, which was carved in the soul of the precursor from the god clan. It wasn't something that Shi Yang could suddenly figure out by himself. The world purifying light shone on Hassan's soul altar. Swoosh! His soul altar turned into ashes in just a blink of an eye. Hassan's seal of life had turned into nothing. The burning karma flame disappeared shortly after. It felt like a nightmare. Shi Yang woke up. The ethereal extent returned to his head. When Shi Yang's soul altar came back to its position, Shi Yang felt no vital signs from Hassan. Boom! Boom! Hassan's bones cracked and exploded before he sank into the bottomless abyss. He disappeared shortly after. There was no aura of Hassan in this world anymore. There were no life energy fluctuations. The vestige of his life in this universe seemed to all be erased. It was utter death. Shi Yang checked his body and found that the poison-dipped cold bead had been burned into ashes at that moment too. It wasn't in his sea of consciousness anymore. The last part of the departed spirit jellyfish in this world no longer existed. Rumble. Rumble. The ancient continent transmitted terrifying tremors. The ground started to bob as an earthquake was coming. The mountains of the ancient continent collapsed inwardly and fell into an endless space of nothingness. The holy mountain where they were standing was also shaking. The world tree shrank and returned into the deep place in the earth core of the ancient continent. The guiding fruits fell off the tree and scattered near MIA, Phelps, Mofu, and the others. The world tree grew in the center of the holy mountain. After it had sunk into the core of the ancient continent, the holy mountain stood still. The world tree seemed to be the skeleton of the mountain. After it had disappeared, the mountain was like a body without a heart standing still in the middle of the ancient continent. Haig, Kang Yoon, and Audrey were freed. They looked at the sky above their heads. Shi Yang had followed the world tree and entered the core of the ancient continent. The Genesis fruit disappeared altogether with him. Many guiding fruits were floating by them. They were the keys to enter desolate in the next 10,000 years. Haig and Audrey grimaced. They stood silently and watched the crystal branches of the world tree enter the earth. They could feel some energy from earth and heaven affecting them. Kang Yoon wasn't dispirited. Quite the contrary, he looked really calm and happy, as if he had finally lifted up the heavy stone that was pressing on his chest. Apparently, Shi Yang got the Genesis fruit. Kang Yoon thought that it was really good and it was his real purpose when he visited this ancient continent. His purpose of the trip to the ancient continent was to see Shi Yang taking the Genesis fruit. No one could guess what he was thinking. Kang Yoon felt so good. He landed on the ground and glanced at Cecilia and Shong Ying-yu, who was slowly recovering. Kang Yoon took out a tree which looked like a miniature version of the world tree. This tree looked fresh and green, as if it was made of green jade. The life energy moved abundantly inside the tree, and that astounded people. The reincarnation life force tree. Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai, and Sho Jiao screamed in surprise. They looked struck. Cecilia and Kang Yoon were so weak. They were astounded as they looked at that tree. The reincarnation life force tree was a rare origin incipient grade treasure. It could convert every kind of energy into life energy. It could change the god power or the cold energy of the icy soul cold crystal into vitality. It could resurrect people. There was a saying that unless someone had been turned into blood, he could use the reincarnation life force tree to recover. It was a strange treasure that they only heard from legends. It was a priceless life-secure treasure, indeed. Kang Yoon's hand was like a knife that halved the tree. He handed the 2 pieces of the tree to Cecilia and Shong Ying-yu. He smiled, "With this piece of the god tree, you guys will recover and you will be even stronger than before. Get well soon." Looking at the 2 pieces of the jade-like tree, Shong Ying-yu and Cecilia were overwhelmed by his unexpected favor. They couldn't speak. Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai, Sho Jiao, and the others were bewildered. They didn't know why Shong Ying-yu had given Shong Ying-yu and Cecilia such a marvel of earth and heaven to recover. Their conditions were stabilized. They just needed time to recover. It was just a waste when Kang Yoon gave them the reincarnation life force tree. It made Jiao Shan's group speechless. "When you see Shi Yang again, please help me tell him to remember the agreement between us. Tell him that I will go to Agate Star area to meet him," Kang Yoon said, and then headed to the cave to get out of the mountain. Most people didn't have a clue of what was going on. Cecilia and Shong Ying-yu knew that Kang Yoon wanted to give Shi Yang face by giving them the reincarnation life force tree to recover and improve their bodies. Audrey descended from the sky, her face glum and her eyes dark without a beam of light. She said dispiritedly, "Shi Yang was dragged into the core of the ancient continent. He needs time to fuse with the Genesis fruit. After that, he will leave the ancient continent. We will be thrown out of here soon. We don't need to fight anymore." Then, she left the mountain. Jiao Shan signaled Jiao Hai and the others. Then, they supported Cecilia and Shong Ying-yu and followed Audrey. Without the world tree, this holy mountain became hollow like a person without the heart or skeleton. It was just a boring skin bag. Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai, and the others had left. They left Haig, MIA, Phelps, and the warriors of the god clan standing with their heads stooped and their spirits low as if their parents were all dead. Haig landed between them, his face disheartened. He didn't have the majestic aura of the one who could conquer the world anymore. It was the first time he was defeated, and this kind of defeat was some sort of humiliation to him. He didn't even have the right to join the competition. Being the young master of the Bradley family of the God Clan, he got the approval of ancient God Continent as soon as he was born. It was destined that he would be the top warrior of his clan regarding power or experience. At that time, Harson was the most outstanding warrior of his clan. The Charteris family didn't dare to let Harson fight him once. It was enough to prove his position and intimidation. However, on this continent, the plan he had plotted failed. Shi Yang had taken the Genesis fruit, which was a critical factor to the prosperity of his clan. They knew the meaning of the Genesis fruit better than anyone else. The Genesis fruit could have made ancient God Continent gather the energy faster. Each member of the God Clan who was native to ancient God Continent would have received benefits altogether. Moreover, even the members of the God Clan in the other galaxies could have had some magical change in their soul altars because their ancestral planet would have been full of energy once again. Each ancient continent was a metal core of belief to their native creatures. It could bring unimaginable benefits to one race. Once ancient God Continent was filled with energy, which balanced the earth and heaven energy there, the shrines of the God Clan built there would have marvelous changes. Members of the God Clan could make themselves stronger through the shrines physically and mentally. They used to get it, so they knew the mysterious benefits they could get. It was enough to transform the entire race. But Shi Yang had the Genesis fruit now. Would our clan be subdued by the immortal demon clan? Since he got the Genesis fruit, ancient demon continent would gather the remnants of energy from outer space faster to provide the immortal demon warriors with surging energy. They would be stronger shortly after. Phelps muttered. He couldn't accept this fact. However, they didn't know that Shi Yang had fused with the origin of Grace Mainland, which was the ancestral planet of the heavenly monster tribe. That was why Kang Yun was so generous. The ones who were about to rise were the members of Heavenly Monster Tribe. Each member of this clan would be boosted with energy because Shi Yang had fused with the Genesis fruit. The tribe that the Imperial Dark Tribe had subdued for years would rise dazzlingly one more time. Unfortunately, Haig, MIA, and Phelps didn't know this. It's not that easy. Our God Clan has killed a lot of immortal demon warriors. They don't have many fellows alive. It's not easy for the 4 great races to reproduce. They can't get strong that quickly. We should just seize the chance before they could rise forcefully to destroy them. As long as we can eliminate them, we will still be the overlords of the cosmos. Haig gritted his teeth, talking to his fellows in his dark, low voice. MIA and Phelps sighed. They thought that they could only comfort their minds that way. The God Clan had been dominating for a long time. They would never let their clan decline. We should leave. We have to get out of this area and leave the continent. Pondering for a while, Haig continued, perhaps we still have time to clean up those fish before the ancient continent kicks us out. They have Audrey. It's not easy, MIA shook her head. Haig's failure had haunted them like a shadow in their minds. As Haig had lost his intimidation, MIA and Phelps thought that Harson, the one who had been destroyed tragically, was somehow more terrifying than Haig. They had even thought that if Harson hadn't died, he would have been the new face of the God Clan's future. Since Haig wasn't eligible to join that final competition, they had looked down on him from that moment. Haig was sensitive enough to feel the down moods of everyone. He became gloomier. He didn't talk more. He just silently walked to the cave to leave the holy mountain by himself. Standing at the entrance of a cave and looking at the most mysterious space in this universe, he felt the reluctance of a loser. Ice blue bubbles suddenly emerged from the 9-tiered blue sky and found the signals of life. They found the warriors by their life magnetic energy, captured them, and lifted them through the sky before leaving this ancient continent. Besides Shi Yang, all of the other survivors on this ancient continent were delivered away. The atmosphere resumed its desolateness. The ancient continent was sealed from now on. Chapter 1191. The The structure of the world. Chapter 1191. The structure of the world. A blue planet was by the edge of the dark universe. It was quietly spinning and showing the mountains, lakes, and sea on its surface. It looked like a beautiful picture with earth and heaven energy. It was Grace Mainland. Due to the planet's exhausted earth and heaven energy, Shi Yang had moved most of the warriors living on this continent to Agate Star area. After they had left, earth and heaven energy here was almost used up. The plants and grass were yellowed. The ancient trees were dying. The forests had become deserts. A deadly desolateness took over the continent. The ordinary people living on the continent were also affected by the change of earth and heaven energy. They started to have strange and rare diseases. Their longevity reduced massively. Previously, even an ordinary human who didn't cultivate martial art and take in the earth and heaven energy could live 70 or 80 years without suffering from a major disease. However, after Shi Yang had delivered the warriors away, the longevity of human beings on this continent had reduced to 50, and even a slight sickness could take their life away. Their immune system was weakened unknowingly, so they couldn't explain. They were able to die easily. Normal people didn't know what had happened to their planet. They just knew that the environment where they dwelled had become much more difficult to live on. The air wasn't fresh. It had become polluted easily. They didn't know that the main reason for all of these adversities was because of the earth and heaven energy running out. They would never know the real reason. However, recently, they were startled to find the situation change again. They saw ancient trees grow green buds, oases appeared in the deserted areas. The air became fresher. After each breath, people could feel much better. Some sick people were healed magically. They glowed in good health. No sickness could kill them. Many weakened people were strengthened unknowingly. Their feeble limbs became strong, and even their crooked backs were straightened up once again. The ocean and lakes became clear with many fishes and shrimps. The fishermen hailed at this miracle. Many cities and towns in White Cloudland, the Endless Sea, and Divine Greatland had the biggest crops ever. Everything they grew gave them a harvest that they could never have imagined. The crops that needed half a month were ripe after just 2 days. In each corner of the continent, each area, each nation, and city, people gradually found the world changing. Some low-realm warriors who stayed on this ancient continent found that their cultivation progressed faster. They could see that they could stabilize their minds and realm quickly. The earth and heaven energy in the world where they lived was increasing amazingly. They thought that it was a beautiful dream of theirs. No one could believe it was real. They knew from their precursors that this continent used to have many experts who had left their homeland to the other star area. Their precursors said that they hadn't had a hope of living in this land. It wasn't suitable for the warriors to cultivate. The reason why they stayed was that their realms were too low. They weren't eligible to leave. They used to regret, whine, and be desperate. Currently, the change of land under their feet had brought them to hope for a new life. It seemed like the mighty heaven had opened a new door for them. People were so thrilled. The shrines and temples in the entire Grace Mainland were packed with people. They came to show their gratitude to God. They thought that God didn't really abandon this land. They had experienced despair and hopelessness. They had endured a lot of disasters. And now, seeing the world turning into what they had in their dreams, everybody burst out in tears. They believed that God had heard them. They were now taken care of and protected. In another dark star area so far away from Grace Mainland. This place had no light, colors, or stars. It didn't even have any sound. It looked like a corner of the universe, which had been sealed for a long time. It used to be a famous continent that was well known around the universe, ancient demon continent. The rough surface of the vast continent had countless holes and long grey rivers. The sky of this area was overcast year-round. The entire continent had the dead aura of a senile, dying person. It seemed like the planet was about to become a dead star. It couldn't nurture any creature. It was ancient demon continent, one of the 5 ancient continents that were born at the dawn of this universe. By the edge of death, it was revived. Anyway, its reviving speed was so slow. It was 100 times slower than Grace Mainland. In the dry sea, the yellowed forest, and on the cracked soil, the thundering roars and howling rose. The noises were loud enough to shake the entire place. The massive beasts as big as mountains emerged. Pythons, three-legged gold crows, dragons, unicorns, phoenixes, and other kinds of beasts emerged. They were several thousand meters long, which made them look like the moving mountains. They were the members of the heavenly monster tribe and the purest bloodline of the monster clan. They were one of the 4 great creatures of the world. They had unlimited god power as soon as they were born. Many members of the heavenly monster tribe were roaring and howling at the sky. They then transformed into their human bodies and became tens of thousands of times smaller. They had a human's upper body and a snake's tail, or a human body with a bird's head. Some had their bodies covered with flaming scales. And some even had red iron bodies. They looked strange and unique. The members of the heavenly monster tribe had transformed into their humanoid form to gather from different corners of ancient demon continent. They congregated in a valley with many strange rocks. This valley had many gray, brown, green, cyan rocks, which were carved into the statues of the giant demogons with green faces and yellow fangs. They held weapons in their hands while they rolled their eyes and posed their terrifying, majestic makings. Seeing these statues, people couldn't help but bow in worship. Even the members of the heavenly monster tribe had to retrieve their brutal auras, showing their fear and respect for the demogons here. If Shi Yang could come here, he would have found a giant statue of the demogon which was very similar to the demogon phantom he had created from the negative energy. The members of the heavenly monster tribe appeared in the rocky forest where the statue stood in their human shape. They came and surrounded a formation surrounded by 9 demogon statues. It was a round formation that was as big as a football court. It had many fine lines weaving with each other, glowing in a faint, cold halo. Those lines were wiggling like worms. The energy waves that could clear the space emitted from that ancient formation. A bright silver vortex was slowly formed. It was another space passage. Kang Yun did it, said a brawny man with a human head and a snake body. He had long, dark, green hair, which was with a closer look, created by thousands of small and thin snakes. Those snakes had their tails connected to his skull. He looked so fearsome indeed. God wants our heavenly monster tribe to be strong, another man shouted like a roaring dragon. This clansman had a bird head connected to a human body. His head was a silver eagle head, which was cold and dark. It made people think that it was made of iron or steel. It's time to wake up the holy ancestor. Perhaps he has sensed the magical change even though he's sleeping. This Kang Yun kid isn't bad. He's worth our merit of teaching him for years. After the battle that year, our heavenly tribe will never bear the same loss. In the next 10,000 years, we will thrive. A member of the heavenly monster tribe with flaming scales covered his body laughed crudely. He shouted and then jumped into the vortex. The experts of the heavenly monster tribe laughed and walked shoulder by shoulder. They entered the vortex. They were going to wake up their holy ancestor who had been sleeping for so many years. Their holy ancestor was going to bring this world a happy surprise. Devil Blood Star, Agate Star Area. Blood Devil, Gute, Bath, Ghost Hunter, Leona, and Phelan were waiting for something by the edge the star. Everybody looked stern, waiting in silence. There seemed to be an invisible, unknown pressure applied to them. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The ear-piercing explosions echoed. Slowly, battleships started to pierce through the thick layers of clouds. Those battleships looked shattered with bloodstains and patches on broken areas. Some damaged areas sounded squeaking as if its components were going to fall off at any minute. Those battleships were massive with different flags. Some belonged to Potion and Tool Pavilion, Fighting League in Dark Shadow Ghostly Prison, and Divine Light. Several thousand massive battleships carried around 1 million warriors of various clans and forces. Fu Wei, Bettina, and Yoon, Jia Duo, and Timlin of the Potion and Tool Pavilion were there too. On the Fighting League side, they saw Fenghan the Hegemon, Xia Xinyang of the Windstorm War Department, Fengyang, Qi Ziyi, Miao Rong, and more. The Master of the Divine Light, Zi Yarrow, Sana, and Jubo also emerged. There were more forces, big and small, and the famous warriors of Agatstar area. They all looked like they had undergone all kind of adversities. On their battleships, the warriors looked pale, many of them had lost their limbs. Apparently, they just had a bloody battle, which they had lost. This force was equal to half of the combined force of the entire Agatstar area. They didn't stay in their respective regions but crossed thousands of miles to the Devil Bloodstar. Make a safe route. Blood Devil shouted all of a sudden. The experts of the monster clan scattered and arranged rest stops for the coming battleships. They were so busy. Blood Devil, Gute, and Bath were the leaders of the monster clan and demon clan in Agatstar area. They frowned and their faces were dark and glum. The Ascot family, the Fernandez of the God clan, and the Bai family of Dry Bone Star area had joined hands to attack Agatstar area for 10 years. The Ascot family opened a space passage that they used to seal before. The massive army of the God clan came in waves. They wanted to crush the dark shadow ghostly prison of Agatstar area. Fenghan's fighting league was defeated shortly after. His warriors were killed. He didn't have the power to resist. The God clan scattered and attacked different areas of Agatstar area. They hadn't had a defeat. Leona commanded the new Blood Legion she had created from Monster Clan and Demon Clan to vanguard and storm Dark Shadow Ghostly Prison. It was the first time they made the God Clan pay a big price and temporarily hold their invasion. In that battle, Leona had commanded the monster and demon warriors to destroy almost 5,000 warriors of the Ascot family and the Bai family. All of them were at King God realm and above. Chapter 1192, The One Who Has Disappeared for 10 Years. Chapter 1192, The One Who Has Disappeared for 10 Years, _. It was the first defeat of the God Clan's great army since they had invaded Agatstar area. The Blood Legion commanded by Leona had stopped the God Clan and made them pause to adjust their force. That battle had encouraged the fighting spirit of all warriors of Agatstar area. More forces cheered up. The war in Agatstar area didn't tilt to one side anymore. However, in that battle, the Monster Clan and Demon Clan had to bear a big loss too. Several years after that, they could only take turns in joining the small battle and becoming the knife that continuously cut the body of the God Clan that gave them minor wounds. Unfortunately, the aura of the God Clan was strong and brutish. They had many elite warriors. In addition to the Ascot family, the Fernandez family and the Bai family also came. 2 years ago, Leona fought the God Clan one more time. She produced a significant result of killing 3,000 warriors of the God Clan. However, they had a bigger loss in that battle. Leona's team had to retreat to defend Devil Bloodstar. They had even smashed the mother and child star linking formation that connected Dark Shadow Ghostly Prison and Devil Bloodstar. They were afraid that the God Clan could track them down using that formation. In the past 2 years, Leona, Monster Clan, and Demon Clan had been in Devil Bloodstar. They were training their warriors for a short period. Through these 2 years, the forces like Fighting League, Divine Light, Potion and Tool Pavilion, Fire Clan, and Ice Clan had formed an alliance. They had joined hands and tried their best to resist the God Clan. They had battled God Clan at every corner of Agatstar area. Throughout these 2 years, each life star of Agatstar area had become a battlefield. Every warrior of Agatstar area had become a soldier. The Agatstar area had so many inspiring stories. The clansmen of different clans had used their lives to protect their homelands. Many warriors decided to detonate their own soul altars to cause a bitter damage to the God Clan. To protect their children and families, they had shown their best valor and stormed towards the God Clan like a moth heading to a flame. However, their enemy was too strong. In the past 2 years, the clansmen of different forces around Agatstar area had to encounter the slaughtering every day, every second. Half a year ago, Potion and Tool Pavilion had cooperated with Fighting League, Divine Light, Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Wood Clan to ambush the God Clan. That battle had buried dozens of thousands of warriors. After that battle, the alliance created by Potion and Tool Pavilion had failed. They couldn't stop the God Clan's invasion anymore and they continuously retreated and gave their large territories to God Clan. The God Clan was able to swagger around and no one stood up to resist them anymore. Every time the others stepped back, the God Clan claimed another life star and closed their circle. Now, 2/3 of Agate Star area had fallen into the control of the God Clan. However, they hadn't relaxed and continued to plan for the final war. The last place that stood still in Agate Star area had a force to resist the great army of the God Clan. It was at Devil Blood Star where the Monster Clan and Demon Clan were based. Leona and the experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan had proven that only they could forcefully resist the God Clan's great army. Thus, Potion and Tool Pavilion, Divine Light, and Fighting League couldn't help but gather here. They came to Devil Blood Star with the hope of joining the Monster Clan and Demon Clan to resist the God Clan. After their battleships anchored in Devil Blood Star, leaders of the other forces proactively came to Blood Devil, GUT, and Bath. They looked so worried and a dark shadow was cast over them. "We could only count on you guys." Fu Wei was calm like an orchid, her white face filled with tiredness. As soon as she arrived, she bowed to greet Blood Devil, Bath, and GUT. Right now, Fu Wei was the real pavilion master of Potion and Tool Pavilion. She had decoded the canon of Potion and Tool Pavilion and merged it with her ethereal extent. Recently, the reason that made Potion and Tool Pavilion the control center of the Union was that they had a lot of resources. They had created a lot of battleships and weapons for other forces. Fu Wei alone had refined many divine-grade weapons. Although they weren't as strong as original incipient-grade weapons, they had given new thoughts to elders of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. They seemed to find the method to refine the original incipient-grade weapons. However, they didn't have enough materials to try. All went for Fu Wei's merit and that cannon. "It's awful that we can't contact Fiery Rainstar area. I wonder what has happened to Yushan. Since we can't exchange information, we can't do many things and take risks," sighed Leona. She had become the backbone of the Union. Whether it was the great leader of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, or Fu Wei, the experts of the Divine Light and Fighting League had deemed this fearsome-looking woman as the new commander of Agate Star area. Leona had used each of her battles to prove her astounding commanding talents. The new Blood Legion she had commanded consisted of a bunch of true bloodthirsty soldiers. They were the only force that could strongly resist the iron shoes of the God Clan. The God Clan is also invading Fiery Rainstar area. I think they don't have extra effort to care about us. We can't count on them. Fu Wei hesitated for a while and then said weakly, "Potion and Tool Pavilion used to have a connection to Fiery Rainstar area. I heard that their situation isn't better than ours. To deal with them, the God Clan has mobilized 2 families." Hearing her, people all changed their faces. 5 years ago, Benny went to Fiery Rainstar area. We haven't heard anything from him. If he were here, it would be easier for me, said Leona begrudgingly. Hearing the name Benny, people had the strange light in their eyes, but they sighed right after that. 5 years ago, Benny had fought Leona once with the same amount of soldiers. Benny had lost that game slightly and he was able to trouble Leona a lot. After that battle, Yu Shan and Xiao Yan strongly requested Benny to go with them to Fiery Rainstar area because their situation was really dangerous at that time. Blood Devil's team discussed for a while and then agreed to let Benny leave with Yu Shan and Xiao Yan. They left with the elite squad of Fiery Rainstar area. They wanted to go back to their homeland and strike the God Clan hard. Then, they hadn't received any news from Benny ever since. Leona knew Benny's talents. She thought that if Benny were here, he could share her load of pressure. She could have saved more energy to control the whole situation. Although Fu Wei, Feng Han, and the others were really strong and they had many incipient God Realm experts here, not many of them could help her in commanding the field. The army of the God Clan knows that we're in Devil Blood Star. They're after us. Soon, they will come here. Fu Wei was still calm. We don't have much time. I've discussed with my team. All of us will listen to you. You can order and arrange us. Everybody looked at Leona with hope. We can't stop them. Leona shook her head and said honestly, our force isn't enough to stop the God Clan's invasion. If we face them directly, we will lose. And if we gather in one spot, they can capture us at once. Then what should we do? Asked Feng Han indifferently. Leona looked at him and contemplated, even if we scatter, we will be destroyed one by one. If we gather, although we can damage the god clan hard, none of us will survive. 50 warriors at ethereal god realm can create a brute formation using their power Upanishad and can kill one first sky of incipient god realm of our side. Most of the warriors of the god clan understand using strange formations. They have years of experience. We don't have that kind of experience. Everybody quieted down. Now, they regretted that they hadn't sent the experts of their clans to Leona to train earlier. If the experts of the forces everywhere were trained for 5 or 6 years, they would have the competence to fight the god clan. But now, time wasn't waiting up for them. Staying in Agate Star area, we can gather our forces for the final battle. I'm sure that we can damage the god clan severely, but we won't win. We will all die. Leona considered her words and said, I heard that you guys have a secret space passage that you can use to escape. As long as you aren't in Agate Star area when the war happens, you can be safe. Let's discuss and see what we should do. The experts of the other forces had laid their hopes on Leona. They thought that she could lead everybody to resist the god clan. Today, listening to her, they felt that the truth was too harsh. They looked baffled as they thought about Leona's suggestion. They didn't dare to play with the future of their clans. They left the hall and privately discussed it with the elders of their clans. They wanted to find a solution quickly. Potion and Tool Pavilion always has fast news. Do you have any information about him? Leona suddenly asked. Pausing for a while, she continued, it has been 10 years. Precursor Shang Chen had predicted precisely. What he tells us happens. It has been 10 years. If nothing bad happened, he should be here, right? Fei Lan and Ka Tuor behind her were startled. They focused on Fu Wei and listened. Even Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut had put on their stern faces as they looked at Fu Wei. They knew who Leona had just referred to. Under people's yearning eyes, Fu Wei shook her head sadly. We have no information at all. Everybody looked extremely disappointed. If he was here, perhaps he would know how to save Agate Star area and bring us hope. It's too bad that he isn't here. We can't save Agate Star area, concluded Leona. She knew that Shi Yang was the successor of the Bloodthirsty Master. She understood that even the bloodthirsty force had stayed hidden, their force was still really big and was hiding around the universe. Although she didn't know how strong this force was, she believed that if Shi Yang could gather them, they could easily teach the Ascot family, the Fernandez family, and the Bai family a lesson that they would never forget. She strongly believed that the bloodthirsty force was still as strong as before. They were all waiting for their king and for the earth and heaven to designate them some mission. Leona's words silenced people. They were all heavy-hearted. The Devil Bloodstar seemed to be covered by a thick layer of dark clouds. People felt like they didn't see the sun. The pressure from the God Clan was like a mountain that suffocated them. But someone didn't feel that. Or, he wasn't human. He was Ghost Hunter. Ghost Hunter came from Grace Mainland and he got the core inheritance in the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range. Recently, he found that his energy, his power Upanishad, and even his body were having some transformation. It seemed like an angel was watching him and strengthening him every second. His competence enhanced rapidly. He didn't know the reason, but he was sure that something magical had happened, which had resonated with his bloodline. He had become stronger day after day. He had even thought that the God Clan wasn't enough to scare him. This unceasingly increasing power had given him belief and hope. Chapter 1193, Awaken. Chapter 1193, Awaken. The icy blue planet moved like a massive meteor across the universe and dragged a long tail of red light. On its way, it had gathered energy from outer space. It was desolate, the ancient continent that never stopped moving. It had drifted across star areas and never rested. It moved like a shuttle between regions of the cosmos. Because of its movement, not many people knew where it was. The training after 10,000 years had ended. The warriors who had survived this time were kicked out of the planet. They had returned to their respective star areas through their own means. Those people had harvested a lot of precious and rare items from Desolate. At the same time, they had an excellent chance to train their mentality and improve their competence. But the most important thing was that they had brought news. An immortal demon warrior called Shi Yang had taken the Genesis fruit from Desolate. The news that the immortal demon clan was about to rise one more time had spread out to big star areas at the speed of a rocket. It had shaken the forces around the universe. Together with spreading news, the pressure that the God clan had put on the other forces had somehow relaxed. People started to have new thoughts. For the time being, the name Shi Yang had become a buzzing topic in the forces and clans around the star areas. People tried to investigate everything related to this name. They hated that they couldn't dig up the 18 generations of his family. Even the forces of the God clan were explicitly investigating the immortal demon clan's activities everywhere. They wanted to eliminate the immortal demon clan completely before they could rise again. The forces around the world became chaotic. Unfortunately, not many people knew Shi Yang's profile and real identity. Also, they didn't know that their presumption of the rising of the immortal demon clan was just a misunderstanding. They assumed that since Shi Yang was a member of the immortal demon clan, he must have fused with the origin of ancient demon continent. And because ancient demon continent was the cradle of the immortal demon clan, it was going to bless the members of the clan. It was too bad that they were all wrong. The ones who benefited here were the heavenly monster tribe. Each warrior who had the bloodline of the heavenly monster tribe in their bodies could sense the change happening inside their bodies. It was like heaven had shown them a direction and blessed them. Their cultivation progressed faster and it was much easier to gather earth and heaven energy. Some warriors with the trace of heavenly monster tribe's bloodline recognized the change, but they didn't know the reason. Only the precursors of the heavenly monster tribe knew that the chance for their clan to rise up had appeared. They started to operate in the corners of the cosmos. However, they kept this secret and revealed nothing to anybody. They seized the chance to cultivate and accumulate energy. Some families of the God clan knew that Shi Yang came from Agate Star area. They knew his connection with some forces in Agate Star area. MIA was the member of the Fernandez family and Phelps was the core member of the Ascot family. After they had returned to ancient God continent, they immediately joined the operation in Agate Star area and revealed Shi Yang's relationship with Agate Star area. The God warriors were nakedly invading Agate Star area. They gathered more soldiers to march to Agate Star area. The reason why Fu Wei and Feng Han suffered a big defeat half a year ago was related to Shi Yang. However, they didn't know that. They didn't know that God clan suddenly increased their forces because of Shi Yang who came from Agate Star area. They didn't know that the God clan wanted to finish Agate Star area as soon as possible because of Shi Yang. Agate Star area had disconnected from the other big star areas in this universe for too long. This conservative star area had sealed the space passages connected to the other star areas. For many years, they had lived in their world only and didn't want to connect the other communities. If the connection had remained with the big star areas, the warriors there would have known how famous the name Shi Yang was and how it had attracted the clans of different planets. They didn't know that the forces around the universe were searching this man and the star area he belonged in. They still lived in their own world and struggled to resist the destructive invasion of the God clan. They didn't know the changes in the world outside the barrier. Desolate was like a meteor drifting around the cracks of the universe and flying away in the dark galaxy. It was like a shadow streak that no one could capture. The center of the ancient continent was sealed. No one could get in it anymore. However, inside Desolate was a world of marvels. The place called the Fountainhead of Powers Upanishads was always inside Desolate. It was the core of this planet and the greatest soul altar of the big races. Only souls could enter this place and they had to be warriors who had fused with the heaven flames. They could come here to cultivate and comprehended their powers Upanishads. In the long river of time, all four ancient continents, ancient demon continent, ancient god continent, grace mainland, and God-blessed mainland produced the heaven flames after a specific period. Only the warrior who could fuse with all of the heaven flames of an era could get the origin and make it the co-soul. From 100,000 years ago, The 4 continents gave birth to different heaven flames after every 10,000 years. The heaven flames then scattered or fused with other warriors. In some eras, the heaven flames weren't all found, so no one was able to merge with the origin like Shi Yang, Haig, Audrey, and Kang Yun. In some eras, it was possible for only one warrior to fuse with all the heaven flames of an ancient continent. The other heaven flames of the other ancient continents could be fused with dozens of different warriors. After they died, the heaven flames were freed and they drifted around to find new masters. The ancient times had created a lot of heaven flames with the power of the origin. Anyone who had the heaven flames could use them to enter the inner part of Desolate, the fountainhead of power Upanishad. However, only their souls could get there. And today, a body was floating quietly in the fountainhead of power's Upanishads. Countless electric spears and flames were shooting around him. The flames and starlight rivers flashed and then disappeared. They all stored the essence of some power Upanishad. His burned arm recovered without a mark. He looked as if he was immersed in a deep sleep while he was bobbing in this place. However, the vitality in his body was vigorous and his soul energy was powerfully emitting. After a very long time. Today, his co-soul flew out of the soul altar with dancing heaven flames. His co-soul had a fruit inside. It acted as a heart, which transmitted formidable energy fluctuations. It was the seed of life that gave people a feeling of something with endless vitality. As soon as the co-soul emerged, a colorful space crack appeared in the fountainhead of power Upanishad. His co-soul flashed and then disappeared into the space crack. It moved through the distance between spaces to a continent and then fell. It was nighttime, so people couldn't see their fingers on Grace mainland. It was a brilliant meteor dragging a long tail of starlight that fell into the heavenly monster mountain range in the endless sea and entered the core of the earth and then got into a red lozenge crystal. It was Shi Yang's co-soul. Shi Yang's co-soul had his facial features, but it was burning like a flame. It entered the crimson lozenge crystal. This crystal was really massive. It hid in the core of the earth and connected to countless lakes, mountains, rivers, and volcanoes. It released frightening energy with a strong suction force. Different kinds of energy that the naked eye couldn't see were attracted by the red crystal and gathered from everywhere. Slowly, they filled the sky, oceans, and surface of this continent and changed in quietly. It was absorbing energy from outer space. The rhombus crimson crystal had a 5-colored fluid murmuring inside. It gave people the impression that something was alive. Shi Yang's co-soul was like a fiery flame that moved around this 5-colored fluid. The fruit that acted like a heart had many fine silky fibers that were like branches of the world tree. It distributed the fluid and filled the rhombus crystal. It seemed to move some mysterious power and send it to this continent. Shi Yang seemed to sink into a beautiful dream. His dream was brilliant and colorful with beautiful lights. Those lights changed continuously and turned into a mountain, a sea, and creatures. Meteors moved in this dreamy land and created a silver river or flames. Light flashed quickly and brought the truth of power Upanishad. He could even see the surging blood sea where the meanings of death power Upanishad hid. Layers of space had the power to confine everything. He could see the evolution of living beings, the death and birth of the stars. In that dream, he was just a nonchalantly onlooker who stood and watched the transformations of many things. He had something flash in his mind, which was like something very delicate that he couldn't grab. However, he was there and he had seen them all. When the co-soul detached his soul altar, he felt so empty. But when it got into the crimson crystal inside Grace mainland, he felt so sufficient. It was the feeling of having a home for his soul. A home of his own. His brilliant ethereal extent was like a galaxy where his host soul stayed. It was his world that he had built with his faith. It was the home of the host soul. The lozenge crimson crystal where the co-soul was staying was like its house. It was a strange world that only belonged to the co-soul where it became the only god. It could feel all the emotions, happiness, sorrow, love, anger, and other emotions of the creatures living here. It could draw the change of the weather with only a flick of his thoughts. However, in Shi Yang's eyes, it was just a dream and a fantasy one. His body floated silently in the fountainhead of power Upanishad, wandering in the strange dream. He had experienced many things. Gradually, his mind quieted down as he found himself getting out of this area. An icy blue bubble appeared in the fountainhead of power Upanishad. It covered and delivered him through a space crack. The bright light suddenly became so dazzling that nothing could compare it. His body disappeared from the fountainhead of power Upanishad. He reappeared in dark shadow ghostly prison and fell into a space passage. When he appeared there, the space passage was sealed. Shi Yang lay by the entrance of the space passage. He was surrounded by countless space passages like light caves, which connected to other stars area, but most of them were sealed. It was the specific feature of agate star area. Shi Yang's consciousness resumed after a long sleep. His fingers twitched. Right after that, he retrieved his mind from the dreamy land. Then, he finally woke up and recognized who he was. Shi Yang opened his eyes, which were deep and archaic. It would have given people a mournful feeling as if he had experienced countless ups and downs of earth and heaven. After scanning the area, he knew where he was. This place was in Agate Star area. It was the dark shadow ghostly prison that had so many strange space passages. Chapter 1194, Return. Chapter 1194, Return. The images he had seen in the dream reflected once again in Shi Yang's head. The beautiful galaxy, the development of death and life, and the magnificent space had flashed one after another. At the entrance of the space passage, Shi Yang was like an ancient tree that had existed for billions of years with the old vicissitude of life as if he had experienced living 100 lives and thousands of changes in this world. It seemed like he had just returned to the ancient world. It was the specific aura of Grace Mainland. Today, it was like milk in his soul. They were one now, which gave him a whole new aura. Although his spirit was still high and enthusiastic with vigorous life energy fluctuations, he had a different taste. Standing there quietly, he was checking the new changes of his soul altar and the true meanings of the three powers Upanishad: death and life, space, and star. The brilliant, galaxy-like ethereal extent emerged and floated in the void behind his head with dazzling suns, moons, and stars. The stars in there had the most magical essence energy of the world that he could use to build a mountain, lake, or any creature if he liked. Shi Yang was shaken. His ethereal extent seemed to change and become the incipient extent, which gave him a feeling of a real thing. It was a benefit naturally gained after his powers Upanishads advanced and his soul was refined. All of a sudden, Shi Yang recognized that while he didn't notice, his realm had advanced one more step. Now, he was just a step away from incipient God realm. The scenes in the dream and the things he had seen were actually what had helped him comprehending his power Upanishad. It provided him marvelous, indescribable advantages. Anyway, where was the co-soul? Shi Yang was suspicious as he looked around bewilderedly. Abruptly, a connection that had crossed the endless space was formed. His soul consciousness was dragged away to the strange land that was far away. He had a strange feeling as if his soul was taken and drawn away in just a blink of an eye. After this feeling disappeared, he found a massive crimson rhombus crystal in his soul. When his soul touched the crystal, he had established a subtle, marvelous connection with a world. He could hear the screams and prayers in the souls of the creatures living in that world. It seemed like he had a pair of heavenly eyes that could observe every corner or even the deepest places in people's souls. The mountains, lakes, deserts, and oceans in this world were parts of his body. They could help transmit his soul consciousness billions of miles instantaneously. He was indeed the god of this world. After each second, this world had changed and it surged with energy. He could observe everything. He could create rain or draw the wind. He was the pulsation of this world. Something exploded in his mind. He knew what had happened. His host soul was still in his body. He was still himself, but his co-soul had gotten into the core of Grace Mainland. Since his co-soul had the Genesis fruit, it had become the soul consciousness of Grace Mainland. Just like Desolate to the ancient continent, it could control the entire Grace Mainland. It was like he was divided into two parts. One was his host soul and his body, The other one was his co-soul and Grace Mainland. With the origin of Grace Mainland, he was given the consciousness of Grace Mainland. The co-soul had become the core of Grace Mainland. It stayed there to control and guard the planet. This ancient continent had become the incipient god realm of the co-soul that the co-soul could manage in silence. The co-soul and the host soul were interlinked. Once a thought came, the two souls would resonate. Regardless of how far they were from each other, nothing could stand between them. Before the Genesis fruit had completely fused with Grace Mainland, the co-soul had to stay there to guard the progress and bring a new life to this exhausted continent. After many thoughts had crossed his mind, Shi Yang's soul consciousness returned. He was still at the entrance of the space passage in the shadow ghostly prison. However, his two souls contacted each other every second. He knew what was going on in both places. The co-soul and the host soul were like his two eyes without many differences. His host soul and the realm of the body had reached the peak of ethereal god realm. He was just one step away from incipient god realm. And only he knew how domineering his real competence was. Shi Yang temporarily put aside the magnificent features of the co-soul and Grace Mainland. He began to think about the current situation. This place was in Agate Star area. He remembered that Shang Chen had predicted that within 10 years, Agate Star area would have to receive the biggest challenge. The God Clan would invade them and they could lose everything within one battle. He knew what he should do. In this chaotic space passage hub, Shi Yang took a walk around and found that the passages connecting Agate Star area to the other star areas had been sealed, including the one leading to Fiery Rain Star area. It was hard to pierce through. The only thorough passage was the one connecting to Ancient God Continent, which was closed before. The entrance to that space passage had been broken wide open. It looked so deep with something like meteors moving through. Shi Yang could sense life energy fluctuations inside that space passage. He immediately knew what had happened. The God Clan had operated their invasion on a large scale. Their army had come here in waves. Could the experts of Agate Star area be able to stop them? He knitted his brows tightly. Countless thoughts flashed through his head. Shi Yang suddenly remembered Shang Chen and Yang Tian Emperor. The reason why he had entered the ancient continent was that of the soul-rotting aphis in Yang Tian Emperor's soul. Shang Chen had temporarily frozen him to control the situation. Shi Yang remembered his appointment with Shang Chen. He calmed down and decided to find Shang Chen first. He got the 7-colored demonic flower to save Yang Tian Emperor. After that, he was going to do the next thing. His soul altar spun. An immemorial space energy fluctuated from his god body. He urged his power Upanishad and the two souls seemed to merge into one within a blink of an eye. He felt like he could directly absorb some kind of energy from Grace Mainland, which was so far from him now. This finding had struck him for a while. Sensing clearly, he found that it was just a hallucination. Bewildered, he slowly understood it. The compatibility between his co-soul and the flaming origin hadn't reached Haig's level. If he could further fuse with the flaming origin, he could do what Haig had shown him. Wherever he was, he could directly take in the power of the ancient continent. He would never need to worry about lacking energy. And for the time being, due to the Genesis fruit inside Grace Mainland, the continent could give him endless energy. He saw the new target. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A light passage was built in front of him with his will and aura. It was a space bridge. He stepped on the bridge and continuously used the space power Upanishad to build more bridges. In just a blink, he could move billions of miles through the vast sea of stars, which was several hundred times faster than the fastest battleship. Only the warriors who cultivated space power Upanishad could leap through spaces at such fast speed. He was at third sky of ethereal god realm and because of the abundant god power he could continuously create space bridges. If Jia Duo, the warrior who also cultivated space power Upanishad, did the same thing, he could do it 3 or 4 times. After that, his god power would be used up and he would be no different from a sheep to be slaughtered. Jia Duo didn't have a lot of god power like Shi Yang. Shi Yang continuously created new space bridges to move through the stars at a speed that was even faster than a meteor or light. As he had just reached third sky of ethereal god realm, he could only move fast within one star area. If he could reach incipient God realm at a profound level, he could cross even an entire star area. He could use his supernatural power to create a space passage in any area to visit different star areas as he pleased. At that time, even the universe was vast. He could take a walk or wander through the borderless sea of stars. Crossing through spaces, Shi Yang felt a little tired. After moving through many life stars, he finally stopped by an area with many dead stars. His countenance became heavy and stern. From Shadow Ghostly Prison to here, he had crossed several life stars in one blink, which was billions of miles. Along the way, he had used the soul consciousness to sense and found no traces of living beings on those life stars. Not many of them had life energy fluctuations. A small number of those life stars still had living beings. However, they were hiding deep inside the star. They were afraid of being discovered. Only one life star had many life energy fluctuations. He sensed and found that it was the aura of the God Clan. He could see the battleships of the God Clan with some experts. Shi Yang understood that the condition of the native forces in Agate Star area wasn't really good. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like this. No strong force guarded this vast area. This spoke to the fact that the God Clan had successfully invaded Agate Star area. He calculated. He didn't strike the God Clan, but he came to this area of dead stars as he had an appointment with Shang Chen. He stopped by a barren, cold dead star and plunged into a cave leading deep down underground. Then, he found the profound triangle space formation that could connect to other spaces. This profound space formation was complex and marvelous. It had countless light dots hovering like a star map. After he had reached third sky of ethereal God realm, he had a new conception of space power Upanishad. His eyes were even keener. He looked at the star map and smiled. His soul consciousness flickered as if he was fondling the star map. Sizzle. 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 The entire space formation moved like a galaxy as he released a magical energy fluctuation, which disappeared into the core of the formation to deliver Shi Yang's message to another star area. Looking at the message being delivered, Shi Yang sat down cross-legged and waited in silence, his face indifferent. He observed that profound space formation and the materials that it was made out of. He used his soul consciousness to sketch the formation that looked like a star map in his head. Sometimes, he smiled as he understood something. He found that with his realm, cultivation base, and the knowledge of space power Upanishad, he could build a space passage that connected to other star areas when he got enough materials. Of course, he had the capacity to open the sealed space passages in Shadow Ghostly Prison too. It was even easier. If he wanted to build this kind of profound formation, he had to know the exact location of the target star area. He had to survey and certify the route of the space passage in the other star area to do that. Looking at the marvelous formation, he had sketched the complex formation in his head, which was like drawing a star map and carving it into his memory. In the future, he could open space passages and wander around the big star areas. He believed that Agate Star area wouldn't be so conservative anymore. It had to open to others. He planned on turning Agate Star area to a new page. Chapter 1195, Sea Territory. Chapter 1195, Sea Territory. Fantasy Mist Star area was adjacent to Fiery Rain Star area and Agate Star area. It was the area covered with grey mist that could even block sunlight. The strongest force of Fantasy Mist Star area was drifting fire. It was a close-knit league established by many big clans of Fantasy Mist Star area to manage the entire star area. Because of the existence of drifting fire, Fantasy Mist Star area hadn't had a war for a long time. The forces everywhere were united. Unlike Agate Star area, Fantasy Mist Star area had connected closely to the galaxy. This place had an area called Sea Territory, which had many space passages leading to many other star areas. The Sea Territory was similar to the chaotic space basin of Shadow Ghostly Prison. This place also had many life stars. These life stars had countless strangely shaped battleships. Some were made of beast bones while others looked like animals or even birds. Some of them looked like they were made of wood, which was so massive that they could reach even 10,000 meters. From a distance, they looked like gigantic asteroids. Many battleships were anchored by the life stars or even hovering in the void. The sea territory was a busy area where many battleships moved in the hustle and bustle. From time to time, the massive battleships moved out of the space passage connecting to other star areas. Clansmen from different clans screamed, laughed, and cheered as they were transporting different types of materials and unique ores of fantasy mist star area. The sea territory was a big harbor of the star area that connected different big star areas. The battleships of different forces often visited the port to trade between the stars. Of course, being the gateway to fantasy mist star area, the sea territory was managed by drifting fire. The warriors of the force rode war chariots around and watched over warriors from other star areas to prevent any problem. The sea territory was extremely rich and luxurious. Each of the life stars here was lively and busy. The biggest markets of fantasy mist star area scattered on those life stars. They welcomed the warriors of the major star areas and forces to trade massive amount of materials. The biggest life star in sea territory was called Cloudy Water Star. The surface of this star had many buildings of major races. Some were conical and some were rocky. There were many wooden buildings that were designed like a bird's nest. The clansmen of various clans dwelled in those buildings. Cloudy Water Star was the wealthiest planet in sea territory. Every day, 1 billion warriors went in and out and brought countless types of matters on several thousand battleships. Cloudy Water Sea had the biggest market and the biggest auction house in the sea territory. Drifting Fire had controlled this star for years. To be exact, Enlea's family of Drifting Fire managed this star. Enlea's family was one of the biggest clans of Drifting Fire. Shong Ying-Yu's grandfather was one of the big leaders of Drifting Fire. Unfortunately, the Bai family had killed him. However, Enlea's family still held a high position in the hierarchy of Drifting Fire. Enlea was the top alchemist of fantasy mist star area. She was really famous as she was the golden banner for her family, which made all the clans of Drifting Fire respect her family. In addition, Enlea got married to a good husband. Shong Chen was the fate traveler. He had wandered around the major star areas and always remained mysterious. A long time ago, some families in Drifting Fire had seized the chance and attempted to snatch Cloudy Water Star from Enlea's family since Enlea's father was murdered. Those families were really strong and many other members of Drifting Fire had chosen to stay idle to observe. Cloudy Water Star was the most bustling star of the sea territory. It was the core center and the pillars of Enlea's family. People thought that Enlea's family couldn't stand the attack and they would give up Cloudy Water Star to protect their family's force. However, people were astounded when the leader of the family that wanted to rob Cloudy Water Star had died all of a sudden in the critical time. He was murdered. That expert was at Second Sky of Incipient God Realm. It was one of the leaders of Drifting Fire. Enlea was an alchemist, so her fighting competence wasn't really strong. At that time, Shong Ying-Yu and Shong Qiu were still young and the power of their family was at the lowest point. Shong Chen wasn't in fantasy mist star area. No one knew where he was wandering. No one knew what had happened. But from that day onward, no one in Drifting Fire dared to challenge Enlea's family anymore. Her family still controlled Cloudy Water Star. Whether Shong Chen was here or not, no one dared to plot this star. At that time, Drifting Fire had spread out a reasonable explanation. It said that Shong Chen had befriended with the most mysterious people and evils in the cosmos. It was that evil force who had helped Enlea's solve that problem while Shong Chen wasn't home. A Second Sky of Incipient God Realm expert who was really strong in the organization of Drifting Fire was killed unknowingly. No one could investigate this case and find the real murderer. No one had the guts to seize or plot against Cloudy Water Star anymore. Cloudy Water Star. It was a vast land where many battleships in different shapes were anchored around the imposing buildings. There was a majestic building made of icy cold rock situated at the center of the continent. It was protected with many barriers outside. There were King God Realm and Original God Real guards patrolling around. It was the private territory of Enlea's family. They were the real owners of Cloudy Water Star. Inside a freezing chamber, Shong Yingyu was sitting while icy soul-cold crystals were planted around her. The energy of icy soul-cold crystals had frozen the entire secret chamber. This secret chamber that was several thousand square meters deep underground was now a world of snow, and the ground was now made of ice crystals. There were 4 warriors in there talking to each other with low voices while observing Shong Yingyu. Shong Chen, Shong Qiu, and Enlia were Shong Yingyu's closest loved ones. Besides them, there was a white-headed elder woman who was supporting herself with an icy jade staff. She had first sky of incipient god realm cultivation base. This old woman was Enlia's mother, Shuja. After Desolate had thrown Shong Yingyu out of the planet, she had traveled through rough and bumpy space passages of other star areas to return to Cloudy Water Star in Fantasy Mist Star area. She briefed them on what had happened in Desolate and then declared that she wanted to cultivate in seclusion. She wanted to use the original incipient grade materials that she had harvested to cultivate here. She was taking in the power of the icy soul-cold crystal and the lightning balls in her hands. Enlia was very surprised when she heard that her daughter wanted to cultivate ascetically. After asking her, she knew that Shong Yingyu wished to break through to incipient god realm. Enlia was so happy. She gathered all the power of the family and asked the experts to come and guard the place. Shuja, Shong Yingyu's grandmother, wasn't in Cloudy Water Star. However, she had dropped off her work in the headquarters of Drifting Fire to come here and protect her granddaughter. As her father, Shong Chen was also dragged here by Enlia. The family members gathered in this secret icy chamber to protect Shong Yingyu. They hoped that she could break to incipient god realm smoothly. Is she all right? Enlia had a high updo hair bun, which added to her elegant, orchid-like bearings. She was frowning and she couldn't help but ask worriedly. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on Shong Yingyu. Little Chen, you've cultivated fate power Upanishad. Could you predict something? Shuja squinted. She thrust her ice jade staff into the snowy ground, squeezing and crushing anxiously. Dad, my sister will be all right, right? Shong Qiu also asked. Breaking through to incipient god realm from third sky of ethereal god realm was a struggling battle that had a 90% rate of failure. Many had fallen in this step. Their soul altars shattered altogether. It was hard for her family to not be tense. They knew that Shong Yingyu was amazingly gifted and that she had a bigger chance to break through since she had been trained in Desolate. However, they were still very worried. If she failed, her body would explode. It was the better case. In the worst case, her soul altar could burn into ashes. They had to be very careful. As his wife, son, and mother-in-law were looking at him and waiting for his answer, Shong Chen forced a smile. I've told you many times. I can't see the fate of the ones who are close to me. I can't predict what's going to happen. Please don't ask me. These 3 had asked him the same question several hundred times. Although Shong Chen had a tough mind, he couldn't endure it. Enlia, Shong Qiu, and Shuja looked discontented. They rolled their eyes at Shong Chen when Enlia hissed, "You useless old man. You can predict people's fates directly, but you can't know how your daughter will be. What's good for you to cultivate such a trash power Upanishad?" Listening to his wife nagging, Shong Chen only gave a forced smile, pretending that he didn't hear anything. He squinted his eyes and waited in silence. After Little Yu came home, she looked different. When she mentioned that kid Shiyang, she sounded a little awkward, and Leah suddenly whispered. Granny Shuja squinted, her eyes searching Shong Chen. Hey, little Chen, how long will you continue to hide the story of that kid? You don't even want to tell your own family about that. Who is he? What's his identity? As she came late, she didn't have the chance to listen to the secrets of the ancient continent that Shong Yingyu had told the others. Only Shong Chen and Enlia knew them, but Enlia didn't know the details. This granny didn't know Shiyang well. Shong Chen gave them another forced smile. He always felt helpless when he faced his family. For the time being, I can't provide more information. Guys, give me more time. After I've solved all the things, I will tell you. It's not a good thing for you guys to know many stories. It could bring trouble to the entire Drifting Fire. Listening to him, Enlia, Shong Qiu, and Shuja discolored in fright. Is that kid's identity really terrifying? Shuja's wrinkled face quivered. She waved her hand, her eyes anxious. Then say nothing. My heart's not good. I can't bear a big surprise. As they were a family, they knew that Shang Chen would never harm them. They also knew the cause of the mysterious death of the expert who was greedy for their fortune. They knew Shang Chen had secrets, which were extremely terrifying. They understood that Shang Chen wanted good things for them, so they didn't ask further. It's not the right time. When the right time comes, I will tell you the details, said Shang Chen. Then tell me. If our little Yu has something with that kid, will it be good or bad for her? Asked Leah earnestly. Shang Chen frowned worriedly. He pondered for a while and then said, if that kid can succeed, it will be our little Yu's blessings and our family's blessings. But if he fails, it will be the biggest disaster. We will fall into disaster altogether. Sigh, I'm having a headache. Swoosh. All of a sudden, a dazzling silver light emitted from a drawing on the wall of the secret chamber and entered Shang Chen's body. Shang Chen jolted up. He closed his eyes to sense and then said, I'm so sorry. I can't wait for little Yu. I have to go now. Why? What's more important than your daughter? And Leah rolled her eyes. That kid has returned from Desolate. He sent me messages. It's really critical. I have to go now. Shang Chen sighed begrudgingly. He bowed to his wife and gave her a forced smile before leaving quietly. Chapter 1196, World Famous. Chapter 1196, World Famous. Inside the chilly, desolate Dead Star, the stone platform of the space formation made out of empty fantasy crystals had lights weaving into a brilliant net. Shortly after, a 5-colored chunk appeared from the stone platform. A figure became clearer inside the halo like a reflection in the water until a real person emerged. Shi Yang opened his eyes although he had been sitting here for a long time. He focused on the man who had just arrived. He frowned. You're late. Shang Chen smiled relaxedly. Little Yu's about to break through to incipient God realm. As her father, I have to protect her. If I hadn't received your message, I would have stayed there to take care of her. I wouldn't have shown myself early. It seems like the experience she gained in Desolate has affected her realm deeply. She got many treasures from Desolate and her will also became stronger. She has a new understanding of ice and lightning power Upanishads. It's reasonable if she can break through. Hearing him mention Shang Yingyu, Shi Yang had a tender smile in his eyes. When he was fighting Harson to take the Genesis fruit, Harson had almost burned down his ethereal extent. At that time, Cecilia and Shang Yingyu had neglected their lives to help him. Unfortunately, Desolate attacked both of them. They were hit by the meteors and they fell. They were wounded badly. Cecilia's and Shang Yingyu's deeds had touched him and made him feel warm. Although he didn't have a deep affection for them, he had a new point of view when talking about them now. Shang Chen was sensitive enough to recognize the slight change in his countenance. He felt his mind sink as he thought it was horrible. Shang Chen didn't want his daughter Shang Yingyu to have any relationship with Shi Yang. More than anyone else, he understood how dangerous Shi Yang was. He knew that Shi Yang was walking on a road that didn't have an exit. Unless he could eliminate all obstacles standing in his way, all kinds of struggles in this way could make him perish 10,000 times. He didn't want his daughter to cry of such hurt. Also, he didn't want Leah's family to get involved with this. This kind of competition was related to the structure of the entire universe in the future. He couldn't see it through, so he didn't want his family to sink with Shi Yang in this mess. You've called me because of your great-grandfather, right? Shang Chen pulled himself together and asked in a low-pitched tone. I've found the 7-colored demonic flower. Shi Yang nodded. I've sealed your great-grandfather in the bitter glacier of the evil North Zone. Shall we go now? Yes. I'm going to show you the way. You'll make our way and bring me to jump through the spaces. We can move faster that way. I can also seize the time to brief you of the general situation of Agate Star area. All right. Shang Chen showed him the direction and Shi Yang had to use his god power to build space bridges. He brought Shang Chen through billions of miles and many stars. On their way, Shang Chen had told him the current situation of Agate Star area in details. The dominating God clan had invaded the Star area as if no one lived here. This happened until Leona commanded the Monster Clan and Demon Clan and tried to counter them. Gradually, the God Clan sent more experts and struck the forces of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Fighting League, and Divine Light. Shang Chen told him the details as if he had witnessed everything with his own eyes. Shi Yang's face darkened as he listened quietly. Whenever they passed by a life star, he would release his soul consciousness to survey the area. Many life stars were in dead silence, and life stars with strong life energy fluctuations were where the God Clan's army based. Time flew quietly. Today, Shi Yang and Shang Chen appeared in the north zone of Agate Star area as they landed on a cold planet. From outer space, this planet looked like a massive snowball with an extremely cold aura. When they pierced through the atmosphere, they saw that the entire continent was covered in sparkling glacier. There were so many icicles that many were like thick bushes of ice swords. Of course, it was chilled to the bone. Shang Chen took Shi Yang to a remote glacier, broke it, and entered the inside of the iceberg. He then lifted the barriers that he had set up there. At the center of an icy, blue rock was a lanky body with blood. It was Yang Tian Emperor. He had been frozen here for many years. His entire body and even the brain and soul altar were frozen. He didn't have vitality anymore. He looked like an ice fossil. "Give me the 7-colored demonic flower," Shang Chen extended one hand. Shi Yang didn't hesitate to give him the treasure that he had snatched from MIA. Holding the 7-colored demonic flower, Shang Chen became earnest. His arm easily pierced through the ice as he placed the flower that had a beautiful female face on Yang Tian Emperor's glabella. Shortly after, the demonic flower was frozen. It then shrank and got into Yang Tian Emperor's brain through a mark. Surprisingly, that mark was the blood mark, the significant crest of the bloodthirsty force. As soon as the demonic flower had entered Yang Tian Emperor's brain, his frozen sea of consciousness started boiling. Countless tiny soul-rotting aphis were hissing and screaming. They were terrified and trying to find a way to escape. The demonic flower in Yang Tian Emperor's head sounded like a sobbing woman that made people compassionate. Strangely, the tiny soul-rotting aphides were frozen and the female crying had broken their souls. They didn't have the power to resist. While the demonic flower was crying, its energy burned. Gradually, it melted, turning into an ivory fluid and seeping into Yang Tian Emperor's soul altar. That fluid had a magical effect of cleaning the remains of the soul-rotting aphides. Yang Tian Emperor now had green blood trickling from his eyes, nostrils, ears, and mouth. The tiny bodies of the soul-rotting aphides washed away together with this kind of green blood. After the aphids were cleaned, Yang Tian Emperor slowly recovered his insane mind. His soul altar began to spin. His despair power Upanishad was urged. After this kalpa, his realm terrifically advanced. Rattle, rattle. The ice melted and water was dripping. Shortly after, Yang Tian Emperor's shattered body emerged. He will need a long time to recover. His body has been damaged badly. Shang Chen looked at Shi Yang and said to him, "Although he has the immortal demon blood and his recovery ability is powerful, his demon blood is limited. If he wants to fully recover, he has to accumulate demon blood sufficiently. This ability of his is far behind yours. It's all right. I'll make him recover faster and better." A sharp stone emerged on Shi Yang's palm quietly. It looked like a gorgeous ruby with amazing blood chi. They could even see a wisp of blood detaching the stone. Shi Yang placed that crimson stone on Yang Tian Emperor's left hand that had only one drop of immortal demon blood trying to heal the wounds of his body. As soon as the blood essence crystal was placed on Yang Tian Emperor's hand, it connected to his veins. Many blood-red threads flew out, covering Yang Tian Emperor's body. Within several breaths, they had covered him completely, creating a blood cocoon. Immense blood chi was released abundantly. The cocoon contained a lot of blood chi as if it was energy in the entire body of an incipient God realm expert. Blood essence crystal. Shang Chen hissed in surprise. He nodded as he knew that it was now pretty easy for Yang Tian Emperor to fully recover. The blood essence crystal was the top treasure of the immortal demon clan. It could help condense immortal demon blood faster. This stone was much more precious than immortal grass. As long as they had the blood essence crystal, they could even revive from death unless their demon blood all burned. Thus, healing the wounds wasn't a problem to this stone. Shang Chen didn't worry about Yang Tian Emperor anymore, but his face was still stern. I've told you the whole picture of Agate Star area. What are you planning to do? What to do? Shi Yang contemplated and said solemnly. Of course, we have to resist with force. Do you have any good idea? Currently, earth and heaven energy was filling Grace Mainland. However, it had been drained for a long time, so it was going to take several years to recover until it became suitable for incipient God Realm experts to cultivate again. He knew that he shouldn't move his friends and family back there right now. Perhaps after dozens or even several hundred of years later, Grace Mainland would become a normal lifestyle that could host most of the warriors. After 100 years, Grace Mainland would be full of earth and heaven energy. When that time came, it would become the dream place for warriors to cultivate other than desolate. Then, Grace Mainland would bring him the most marvelous powers that he couldn't have imagined. If the ones who he cared stayed in Grace Mainland, they would receive concerns from the mighty heaven. However, it was impossible now. The native forces of Agate Star area are defeated. They have lost their fighting will. Of course, their real competence isn't as strong as the other three families of the God Clan. Shang Chen said frankly, if nothing unexpected happens, the native forces of Agate Star area will be cleared soon. The God Clan will claim this star area like they have claimed other star areas. Shi Yang kept silent. He knew that Shang Chen was telling the truth. You should use your influence, Shang Chen suggested all of a sudden. My influence? Shi Yang was surprised. Yeah, your influence. Your name Shi Yang is your influence. Shang Chen's eyes were strange. Do you know how famous you are in the major star areas? Shi Yang became bewildered. Sho Jiao is the new rising star of the Jiyu God sect. He'll be designated as the leader of the Jiyu God sect in the future. The trip to Desolate was his last training. If he can come out alive, he'll become the leader of the Jiyu God sect. In addition, the Jiyu God sect is the first-ranked force of Hollow Fearsome Star area. Even the God Clan doesn't dare to provoke them. The Jiao brothers, Jiao Shan and Jiao Hai, are the sons of the head of the Jiao family. The Jiao family are the overlords of Sirius Star area. After they come out of the ancient continent alive, one of them will become the future head of the Jiao family. The Wu brothers, Wu Feng and Wu Bai, are from the main line of the Wu family in Prosaic Star area. The fact that they could go to Desolate has proven their position in the family. They will become leaders of their family in the future too. Mo Fu is the nephew of Black Wind, an old freak in Black River Star area. He's the genuine overlord of Black River Star area. He has many disciples. That Black Wind freak is a living signboard. Fuller. Shang Chen observed Shi Yang and told him the identity of each name. Sho Jiao, Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai, Wu Feng, Wu Bai, Mo Fu, and Fuller represent the major star areas in this vast universe. They could have been eliminated in Desolate without you. Today, they have returned alive and received the approval from their family respectively. Their voices matter in their families. Also, the God Clan has created resentment with these forces. Pausing for a while, Shang Chen spoke with a smile. The most important thing for them is to look for you. Sho Jiao, Jiao Shan, Wu Feng, and Mo Fu are finding you using their own channels. Even after you guys had left Desolate, you are still the leader in their minds. Shi Yang was baffled. Chapter 1197, Scheme Against the World. Chapter 1197, Scheme Against the World. How could he do that? Shi Yang was baffled. He was inexplicably surprised. Instinctively, he shook his head, smiling and talking resolutely. Impossible. As Sho Jiao, Jiao Shan, Wu Feng, and the others were outstanding prodigies of the strong force, they were the new generation of field commanders. Of course, they weren't stupid. They were geniuses. How could they lose their minds just because Shi Yang had saved them in the ancient continent? This wasn't right. On Desolate, People had joined hands to save their lives from the God clan. Since they had left desolate, this precondition was gone. Why did they need to find Shi Yang? Shi Yang didn't buy it. Shang Chen smiled and said to him, "You don't know yourself yet. Please enlighten." Shi Yang didn't have a clue. Of course, Shuo Jiao, Jiao Shan, Wu Feng are searching for you and treating you as their leader because you have saved them. But it's not the main reason. The main reason is that you got the Genesis fruit from Desolate. It's also because you're a member of the immortal demon clan, said Shang Chen in a low-pitched voice. Shi Yang became stern. In fact, their situation isn't very different from the time they were on Desolate. The God clan is still the biggest pressure to them. That clan will approach them. Even in here, they still need to unite and join hands with the forces of the major star areas to resist the God clan. Shang Chen took a deep breath and then continued earnestly. You've fused with Desolate. In the future, you'll become the god of the ancient continent. That continent will become the holy land of cultivation because of its abundant energy. If they can form friendships with you, their outstanding warriors can come to the ancient continent to cultivate in the future. They can get the advantages for 10,000 years. And you're an immortal demon warrior. Currently, rumors say that the God clan will decline and the immortal demon clan will rise again. In their eyes, you're the leader who will take the immortal demon clan back to its glory. Moreover, you have the identity of the heir of the bloodthirsty force. You dummy. You don't know the world out there. You're a hot potato now. They're finding you because of you are valuable. Their gratitude is just an excuse they've made up to approach you. Shang Chen could see the whole picture. Shi Yang contemplated. After a long time, he reacted and agreed with Shang Chen. I understand. What should I do? Simple. If they want to go with you, you can borrow their forces. The God clan is also their enemy. Currently, the God clan's reputation is decreasing and the God warriors had attacked them on Desolate. If you call, they will answer, smiled Shang Chen. Haha, so I can untie the knot of Agate Star Area's situation? You can strike the God clan hard at Agate Star Area. If you manage it well, that battle will spread your name everywhere. It's a little troublesome to contact them. We're too far away and I don't know their star areas. I'll handle it. Puff. Some transparent crystals appeared on Shang Chen's palm and piled up on each other. The crystals reflected Shi Yang's image. It looked like there was a bunch of Shi Yangs moving into the crystal cubes. These cubes are called Magic Image Crystal. You can record your image and message here. Just tell them that you need help. I'll hand each of these to them. I'm sure they wouldn't just stand and stare. They will come with their battleships. Shang Chen smiled until his eyes narrowed. I think they will be delighted to have a close relationship with you. They wouldn't find it a problem. Each of the passages connecting to Agate Star Area is closed. It's not as easy as you said, eh? Shi Yang was surprised. Don't worry. Leave it to me, said Shang Chen. Shi Yang looked at him bewilderedly. Why are you so enthusiastic? Why are you helping me in all these ways? Do you owe me money? Shang Chen didn't know if he should cry or smile. He cursed under his breath and then talked coldly. Agate Star Area is my homeland. I don't want it to be a vassal of the God clan. And it's true that I owe Frederick a favor. All right, let's do it. After Shang Chen had arranged everything, Shi Yang didn't delay. He cooperated and recorded his call for help in the magic image crystals and then handed them to Shang Chen. Your great-grandfather needs more time to recover. You should stay here to protect him. I'm on this mission for you. Shang Chen seemed to have a good mood. He patted Shi Yang's shoulder and then left with a smile. After he got out of the icy star, he took out a hexagonal ice-flying carriage from his fantasy sky ring and moved like an icy meteor. The ice on Yang Tian Emperor's body had melted. He was covered by a blood cocoon. Shi Yang could hear his strong heartbeat and feel his surging vitality. Shi Yang sat quietly by him to sense the changes inside the blood cocoon. He finally eased his mind. He knew that Yang Tian Emperor would recover quickly and his realm would advance further. The benefit that a blood essence crystal had given him was unimaginable. Shang Chen returned to the underground of the Dead Star. After hesitating for a while, he activated the profound space formation. He entered the profound formation, but he didn't appear in fantasy Miststar area. Instead, he was teleported to a dark abyss where he couldn't even see his 10 fingers. It was the most mysterious area in this universe. Not many people knew about this place where there was no beam of light or wisp of earth and heaven energy. It was just a dark void. The jet-black abyss where Shang Chen visited, the most mysterious place in the universe, was the core holy land of the bloodthirsty force. 2 pairs of eyes emerged in this dark voice. One was cold, evil, and green. The other was as red as blood. They belonged to 2 experts. Their bodies were devoured by the darkness here, so only their eyes were visible. Shang Chen's brown-grey eyes weren't significant here, but the other 2 could locate him precisely. The green and red eyes studied him. "Shi Yang, get out," Shang Chen snorted and said to the green eyes. "Frederick, what does the bloodthirsty force want to do? Why do you want me to transmit everything? Why don't you show yourself? I have to get out to do that." The one with the green eyes had a voice filled with a death aura. While he was talking, even the atmosphere became colder. And it gave people a feeling of staying inside a tomb where a wailing ghost was licking their necks. How about Xian He? Was he imprisoned too? Shang Chen looked at the pair of blood-red eyes and shouted indignantly. "Hey little buddy, you sound discontented," Xian He guffawed bizarrely. "It's all right. After you give the kid the guiding fruit, you're done with Frederick. Yeah, you don't owe us anything. You can leave now. About Agate Star area, it's too far. We won't mind it for the time being." Hearing him, Shang Chen wore a sour face. Agate Star area was his homeland. Seeing this star area was stirred up earth-shakingly, he was more agitated than anyone else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suggested Shi Yang many things. He even proactively received tasks, too. In fact, Shi Yang wasn't born and grown in Agate Star area. If he made up his mind and moved all the warriors related to him out of the area, he could dodge the conflict with the God Clan. But if he did that, Agate Star area would be over. It wasn't what Shang Chen wanted to see. That's why he proactively joined this operation. As Xian He said that they didn't want to care about Agate Star area, he had grabbed Shang Chen's weakest spot, which made him obedient. "You evil." Shang Chen gritted his teeth. "Spit it out. What else you want me to do? As long as it doesn't violate my principles, I'll fulfill everything for you." "Aha. That's good, right? Maybe we'll become family in the near future. Why do we need to care about tiny things, right?" Xian He's laughter was sinister and cunning. "Your daughter has something in his destiny with Shi Yang. Your power Upanishad can't predict your beloved one's life. I'll help you do that." "Oh, yeah, they would be, not bad at all." Shang Chen paled. "Don't talk nonsense. I will never let my daughter have any relationship with that little brat." "Well, we'll talk about this later." Frederick knew Xian He had an evil mouth and could stimulate Shang Chen until he vomited blood. Thus, he talked them out of it. "Talk about the business now. You met him. What did he say?" Shang Chen told them about the conversation between him and Shi Yang. Frederick and Xian He listened to him in silence. The 2 pairs of green eyes and crimson eyes floated in the dark void like lanterns. They looked indeed evil and ghostly. In this absolute darkness, they were so terrifying when they kept silent. After a long time, Xian He said, "You don't need to do anything this time. Your intention is really good. You just carry it out then. Yeah, you should deliver his call for help to the big star areas. We will have some other arrangement which won't cause conflict with yours." Shang Chen looked at the deep green eyes of Frederick. "Yeah, this time, we won't bother you," said Frederick. Shang Chen nodded. He left without saying anything further. He disappeared from this place using some strange method. A long time after the man left, Xian He said, "We could seize this chance to create a foundation. We need to use our force. If we participate in the war of Agate Star area, we can boost him to the peak instantly." "I have to contact that guy," Frederick nodded. It sounded like joints in his entire skeleton were cracking. His soul control power Upanishad has helped him control many forces. We don't even know how wide his henchmen have been spreading. It's a good chance to check, though. Okay, I'll notify him and let him join Shang Chen discreetly. We will give people a big surprise. Xian, he smiled cunningly. Ask the heavenly monster tribe to take action. This time, they've gained the best benefits. We must make them share some force too. Frederick contemplated and then continued, I'm going to send someone to talk to those old men. If the heavenly monster tribe wants to move to Grace Mainland, they have to shed some blood this time. The force that Shang Chen is gathering, the force that Guy is controlling, and the heavenly monster tribe. Xian, he guffawed evilly in the dark, which sounded like an owl hooting. The Ascot family and the Fernandez family was buried in Agate Star area this time. It was good though. If our kid wanted to make an impressive debut, he needed some famous people to bury them with. Otherwise, how could he become eye-catching? Of course, it should be magnificently big. Haha. Right. We will shake this entire universe. We will make them glue their eyes to Agate Star area. The two conspirators laughed happily in the dark abyss. Chapter 1198. There's a force. Chapter 1198. There's a force, Hollow Fearsome Star area. By the black blood ghost pond of Jiu Godstar, Sho Zhao's ferocious face was focused. He was concentrating on making hand seals, his hands moving as if he was using the grinding mill. The black blood ghost pond in front of him had black and viscous water that rose as he was urging it. Countless bugs and worms that naked eyes could see were screeching while tearing and devouring each other. The black blood ghost pond was the important cultivating area to train toxic insects of the Jiu God sect. It opened only to the elders and the sect master. The other disciples of the sect could only visit this area when they celebrated the sect anniversary after every 100 years. It was the chance to eye the mysterious features of the place. Normally, this place was prohibited. No one was allowed to enter, let alone cultivate here. Previously, Sho Zhao didn't have that right. 10 years ago, he had spent a lot of efforts to get the guiding fruit to enter the ancient continent. He was just one of the outstanding warriors of the new generation. He didn't have a strong background. 10 years later, he survived the ancient continent with a lot of treasures. At the same time, his cultivating attainment and power Upanishad advanced. He was just one step away from incipient God realm. He had become more powerful. Sho Zhao had become an eye-catching character in the Jiu God sect. The black blood ghost pond that was open exclusively to the elders and the sect master opened to him for the first time. Sho Zhao was cultivating the secretly imparted evil techniques of the Jiu God sect. He was making countless bugs and worms eat each other to screen the most brutes. Then, he would use secret medicines to feed them and make them the Jiu king. He wasn't eligible to practice this secret technique before. However, after he had survived the ancient continent, most of the elders had allowed him to start learning this technique. They gave him a copy of the textbook so he could learn it himself. Sho Zhao's position and status in the Jiu God sect rose like a boat rising above the water. Many elders who didn't have a good relationship with him now chased after him to make a good connection. They had even tried to win his favor. When he was cultivating the evil technique in the black blood ghost pond, they offered him useful gifts. The toxic insect screeched and showed its fangs, swallowing others in the black blood ghost pond. Sho Zhao looked indifferent as he was using the power Upanishad in his soul altar to contact the insects and capture the most brutal ones. Sizzle. Sizzle. Two cockroach-like bugs suddenly screamed from afar and sent Sho Zhao's soul into alarm. Sho Zhao frowned and paused his cultivating. He looked in a direction. Shortly after, an old man who had a lot of infectious, swollen wounds on his face walked over with a bright smile. He was one of the elders of the Jiu God sect. His name was Gale and he had a close relationship with Sho Zhao. I got something for you. Gale threw a magic image crystal to Sho Zhao from a distance. Sho Zhao darkened his face and said unhappily, I told you to not disturb me when I'm cultivating except for. It's the except thing that you said, continued Gale. Sho Zhao's cold eyes brightened. He didn't pay attention to Gale anymore and just opened the magic image crystal. He then saw Shi Yang and heard his voice. He listened quietly. After the image in the cube disappeared, Sho Jiao stopped his cultivation and spoke to the old man. Gale, I need a force. I want to enter Agate Star area and fight the God clan. You should talk to the sect master yourself. Ah, right. I think it's not gonna be a problem, said Gale with a strange expression. Why do you say so? Sho Jiao didn't understand. The Great Elder doesn't like you, you know that, right? But this time, he proactively asked the sect to send our warriors to Agate Star area. He wants to attack the God clan too. His reason for this operation is that the God clan had plotted to kill you on Desolate. He said that the God clan didn't think the GU God sect was strong enough. Gale didn't understand this event either. When he told Sho Jiao the details, he also looked bewildered. Sho Jiao rubbed his head and felt a little amused. Which game does he want to play? I don't know, but I'm sure he's dead serious. He's gathering the troops now. He looks even more rushed than you. Gale waved his hand. I don't care about him. I'm going to talk to our sect master. The sect master watched the magic image crystal. He agreed. He also assigned the army under your command. They're waiting for you to get out of here to start the operation, said Gale strangely. Oh gosh, what's going on? Why are they more enthusiastic than me? What did Shi Yang offer them? Sho Jiao was baffled. Only God knows. Gale forced a smile. Prosaic Star area. It was an extremely busy life star where people could find a 1,000 square mile arena. The area was so lively and noisy with the boiling crowd of dozens of thousands of warriors. This arena hosted any kind of bloody battle that people could imagine. They had human and beast gladiators fighting against each other. They would have matches between humans and beasts, beasts against beasts, and warriors against warriors. This huge arena was divided into smaller blocks where many warriors were screaming and betting. It looked like a massive food market, indeed. The women from different races with exposing dresses walked around to offer various types of wines and products. The smell of sweat, the screaming, and the roaring of beasts expanded continually. This was a completely chaotic scene. This was the life star that the Wu family had managed. The Wu family was the strongest force of Prosaic Star area. They always favored using martial arts to create a whole new world. Both the warriors and the ordinary residents of Prosaic Star area were combative. Their most preferred entertainment activity was to visit different arenas to get thrilled by watching different kinds of bloody matches. Inside the biggest arena, there was a skybox built on a high tower made of divine crystals. Wu Feng was lying on a big, soft bed there. The beautiful maids from the Sea Tribe, Dark Clan, and Water Clan were serving him with fruits and wine. He was having fun in the middle of white and soft flesh while watching the box-like arenas down there to cheer at the interesting matches with the boiling crowd. Some warriors at Ethereal God Realm from the Wu family were waiting, their faces arrogant. Wu Feng's location was atop the arena. From here, he was like an archangel with extreme superiority, watching the creatures underneath his feet. The Wu brothers controlled this arena. Wu Feng was the owner of this place. Young master, someone delivered a magic image crystal. He asked me to hand it to you. A haughty, brawny man stepped forward and kneeled in front of him, holding out a magic image crystal. He was stooping and not watching Wu Feng's hands moving under the skirts of the beautiful maids from the Sea Tribe and Water Clan. Wu Feng threw him a glance and impatiently took the magic image crystal from his hand. He grunted, "Someone wants to ask me to do something." Again, after he had returned from the ancient continent, Wu Feng was appointed to be the successor of the Wu family. For the time being, the big forces in the Prosaic Star area hand squeezed themselves through the crowd to meet Wu Feng, giving him beautiful maids and precious cultivating materials. They just hoped that Wu Feng would remember their names. Almost every day, people came to offer him great gifts to seek for a chance to talk to him. He got used to it. His subordinates also got used to it. Now, they treated the others with arrogant, understanding smiles. The Wu family were the overlords of Prosaic Star area. Once Wu Feng took over the control of his family, He became the most powerful man in prosaic star area. He would never lack precious treasures, cultivating materials, and beauties. Being his subordinates, they also felt proud. Wu Feng couldn't help but curse. He was still lying in the laps of the soft, white women. He opened the magic image crystal leisurely. Wu Feng jolted up. His impatient face was washed away. His eyes were now cold and dreadful ones he had when he was on Desolate. He pulled himself together as he muttered, "Shi Yang, big boss." All of his subordinates were bewildered. The beauties of different races sitting by him were astounded as they looked at him without a clear clue of what had just happened to him. Wu Feng was the future leader of prosaic star area. After he had returned from the ancient continent, he was always running wild everywhere. When people saw him, they had to bend their bodies or even kneel down. They wanted to win his favor. They had never seen Wu Feng giving his good face to anybody. "Shi Yang, big boss." His subordinates and the beautiful women were aghast. They couldn't believe that Wu Feng would respect anybody that much. "Get out of here. All of you." Wu Feng snorted, his eyes terrifyingly dark and sinister. He glared at his troopers and then his venomous snake eyes raked through the women who were exposed by him. He sent them away impatiently. They felt petrified as they ran away. They were worried that they would receive Wu Feng's anger. Before they left, they caught a glimpse of Wu Feng sitting neatly to listen to the magic image crystal. It was just a stone, but Wu Feng still showed his respect and listened earnestly. They were panic-stricken while wondering who that Shi Yang guy was and what kind of magic he had that made Wu Feng that cautious. It was almost at the same time that Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai in Sirius Star area, and Mo Fu in Black River Star area received the magic image crystal. They didn't act differently from Wu Feng and Shuo Jiao. After they had received the magic image crystal, they immediately talked to their clans and family and requested to send a force to Agate Star area. Magically, their clans and families didn't oppose their request. They immediately sent powerful corps to help them. They had cooperated so well that they made the others felt somehow incredible. They even encountered some awkward situations. For example, in Shojiao's force, the great elder of the Jiyu god sect was really powerful. He was just a little below than the sect master. In the Jiyu god sect, he was under just one warrior but above tens of thousands. This great elder didn't like Shuo Jiao. However, this time, he gave Shuo Jiao a special concern. He even asked to take the army to fight the enemy himself. Even the sect master was surprised. He had to find Shuo Jiao and ask if he had some secret agreement with the great elder or not. Similarly, Mo Fu's grandfather was Black Wind the Freak. He had many disciples scattered around. In Blackwater Star area, Mo Fu's grandfather was the highest existence and he was like the earliest ancestor of martial arts. However, there was a guy who had never liked Mo Fu. He was the sworn brother of Mo Fu's grandfather called Bai Yifeng. This great-uncle always thought that Mo Fu was a bastard and a playboy who would never succeed. He opposed all of Mo Fu's idea as if he couldn't stand the young man even for a second. However, this time, when Mo Fu requested to bring their men into Agate Star area, Bai Yifeng didn't reject. Quite the contrary, he proactively gathered the force for Mo Fu and secretly helped him adjust the extremely dominating force. Mo Fu was stunned. He thought that his grandfather had talked Bai Yifeng into this. When he asked his grandfather, he knew that his grandfather hadn't done anything related to this. Mo Fu's grandfather also thought that Bai Yifeng had changed. To Mo Fu, Bai Yifeng changing his attitude towards him was always a mystery. Some similar events happened in the forces of Wu Feng, Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai, and Fuller. The superior experts who didn't get along well with them all agreed to send the warriors to help Shi Yang resist the God Clan. It was so strange as if they had all changed. In the dark, it seemed like an invisible power was planning for everything. The major star areas in this universe had received the call. So many battleships were roaring and heading in one same direction. Chapter 1199, Experts Get Together. Chapter 1199, Experts Get Together. Sea territory in Fantasy Mist Star area. Potter was standing in the deck of a slim battleship that looked like a fish. His face was heavy as he was continuously asking his subordinates for something. Potter was the great chief of Drifting Fire. He controlled everything of Drifting Fire Union. The other chiefs only listened to his orders. He was the most powerful man in Fantasy Miststar area at Third Sky of Incipient God Realm. However, Potter was having a severe headache at this moment. The warriors under his command were also flustered. Each of them was holding a sound stone near their mouths, shouting and demanding to know the situation. Potter had been staying in the headquarters of Drifting Fire. He was cultivating when he heard about the commotion in the sea territory. He hurried to get here through a secret teleport formation. The current situation in the sea territory wasn't normal. Recently, more and more battleships came to the sea territory. They carried warriors from different races. They all had surging murderous auras. Listening to his subordinate's report, Potter was so restless. Right after that, he came to the site himself and summoned the chiefs of Drifting Fire. He wanted to know what was going on out there. Still don't know yet. Potter thundered. Francis was the one in charge of collecting intelligence related to Drifting Fire. With a severe countenance, he said, "We've identified some of them. We found battleships of the Wu family in Prosaic Star area, battleships of the Jiu God sect from Hollow Fearsome Star area, battleships of the Jiao family from Sirius Star area, and even battleships of Black Wind the Freak from Black River Star area. Also, we saw Earth sect's battleships from Earth Eye Star area led by young Master Fuller and..." Potter's face changed after Francis announced each name. The other chiefs of the Drifting Fire also grimaced. The Wu family of Prosaic Star area, the Jiu God sect of Hollow Fearsome Star area, the Jiao family of Sirius Star area, the Earth sect of Earth Eye Star area, and the force of Black Wind the Freak of Black River Star area were the strongest forces in the universe. Although Drifting Fire was strong, it couldn't beat these forces. Listening to the report of the possible enemies, the leaders of Drifting Fire became heavy-hearted. "Oh gosh." Potter scratched his head and said irritatedly. "Why did they gather in our sea territory? Do they have a conspiracy against our Fantasy Miststar area? Impossible. I didn't receive any information before this huge commotion. I didn't do anything that could cause grudges against others. Everybody was down. They came with a huge number of battleships. Each force has around several hundred battleships with dozens of thousands of warriors at Original God Realm, Ethereal God Realm, and Incipient God Realm." Francis sounded like he wanted to cry. "With the force of our Fantasy Miststar area, I'm afraid that we can't endure them. If they join hands, they can even attack Ancient Godstar area." The leaders of Drifting Fire were filled with terror. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to kill us. Although they don't have any strange commotion now, we should get the situation first." Potter pondered for a while and then said, "I want to talk to them myself. Prepare for me." "Yes, sir," replied Francis. He immediately took out the sound stone to send a brief message. Many warriors of Drifting Fire also took action. They got on war chariots and flew to those battleships, asking to meet the leaders. After 1 hour, the leaders of Drifting Fire felt like they had a flame burning their hearts while they were waiting. Francis lifted his head, his face stunned when he spoke to Potter. "They said that they just wanted to use our route. They won't linger and they don't want to waste their time to talk to us." "Use our route?" Everybody was stunned. They asked as they didn't have a clue. What kind of route? The sea territory in Fantasy Miststar area wasn't the biggest space hub in the universe. Compared to the sea territory of Prosaic Star area and Hollow Fearsome Star area, it didn't have more space passages. The other star areas had almost all of the space routes that Fantasy Miststar area had. Potter couldn't figure out what route they wanted to take in Fantasy Miststar area. He thought that it was just an excuse they had fabricated. Then, the sound stone in his hand vibrated. Potter quivered. He looked at the beautiful amber halo from his sound stone. He became serious immediately. Precursor Shuja. The chiefs of Drifting Fire looked touched and fearful at the same time when they heard the name. They put on respectful faces and listened earnestly. "Potter, don't be so surprised. The battleships of the other star areas come here not to aim at us. You have to keep the information on the down low. Do not let the God clan know this. They came to our sea territory to take the route to Agate Star area. We're closer to Agate Star area. Yeah, that's it. Don't do anything rash to get drifting fire in trouble, said Shuja, who was Shang Yingyu's grandmother. Many warriors of drifting fire were astounded. What do you think about Precursor Shuja's words? Potter finally eased his worried mind. People exchanged looks. They showed that they would listen to her words because Shuja wouldn't harm them. Then we just carry out this way. We must keep this secret, everyone. Try our best to facilitate them. Don't provoke them. Potter ordered his chiefs. The others regarded him. The secret chamber in the palace in the center of Cloudy Water Star. The icy soul-cold crystals had released an extremely cold aura that made the entire palace chilly to the bone. Shang Qiu shivered and clenched his jaw to endure the bitter cold atmosphere. Why did you make such a big commotion? And Leah glared at Shang Chen. The battleships of many forces are congregating in our sea territory. If we have any dispute with them, I'm afraid that we can't bear it. Shuja frowned. She gave a dry cough and then said, Little Chen, I'm an old woman. I can't bear such an attack. Tell me honestly, are you sure that you can control them? Shang Chen shook his head. I can't control them. And Leah and her mother wore cold faces. Anyway, don't worry. They don't dare to act rashly in our sea territory. Shuo Jiao, Jiao Shan, and Wu Feng will control them. Shang Chen looked at his daughter, who was sitting still as if she was sealed by the ice. Even if it's to give face to our little Yu, they won't do anything bad. Because of that kid. And Leah snorted. Shang Chen nodded with a forced smile. Shuo Jiao, Jiao Shan, Jiao Hai, Wu Feng, Mo Fu, and Fuller are the ones who will control their forces in the future. After they returned from the ancient continent, they've advanced to different levels. However, they've secured their status and positions in the clans. Do they really listen to that kid? Shuja was surprised. Although she belonged to the high echelon of drifting fire, she knew that Shuo Jiao, Jiao Shan, and Wu Feng had reached the peak of power in their clans. They were going to become the real leaders in the future. Would such characters respect and consider that kid as their leader? Shuja felt funny. But Shang Chen nodded and said, they will listen to that kid. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to our sea territory with the elite forces of their families. Do they actually want to get into Agate Star area through our area? They want to help that kid fight the God clan? How could it be? And Leah shook her head continuously as she couldn't believe it. Of course, I won't deceive you. I've asked a guy to help me open the blocked space passage between our place and Agate Star area personally. The reason why they linger here is to wait for other battleships from star areas that are further away. Once they gather sufficiently, they will depart immediately, said Shang Chen. Oh my God! The battleships are still coming. What do they want to do? Attack the ancestral star of the God clan, screamed Shuja. Shang Chen could only give her a forced smile. There was one sentence he hadn't said yet. He found that besides those forces, the Heavenly Monster Tribe and the Immortal Demon Clan were operating discreetly. Many mysterious forces and sects that had secluded for years also began to take action. The combined force of those forces made him panic. After this time, he knew how terrifyingly formidable the hidden bloodthirsty force was. He looked at his daughter, who was sitting still and whispering inwardly, perhaps it wouldn't be a bad thing if she was with him. A space bridge was opened. Two silhouettes flashed and then disappeared. A new space bridge was formed that delivered them like shuttles. The distance between them and Devil Bloodstar was shortened gradually. Great-grandpa, how does it feel to enter ethereal god realm? Shi Yang turned around and asked smilingly. It seems like I have an endless source of energy that I can use at any time. Yang Tian Emperor was cold and stern. The blood essence crystals are more magical. The immortal demon blood has replaced all of the blood in my body. The immortal demon body is really powerful since it can enhance my overall competence by one more level. The soul-rotting aphides in his brain were cleared, his soul altar spun vigorously once again. Although he was confined for many years, His consciousness hadn't ceased. In the desperate situation where he was certainly going to die, his realm had advanced amazingly. He just needed energy and surging god power. The blood essence crystal was the top treasure that benefited the immortal demon warriors. It generated endless blood chi to help him replace blood and give the ability to transform into his immortal demon body. Currently, Yang Tian Emperor had reached ethereal god realm and he had just formed the ethereal extent. His despair power Upanishad was indeed an extreme power that gave people a deadly threat. Your blood chi is abundant. You just need time to stabilize your ethereal extent. After that, you will find more marvelous features of your ethereal extent, said Shiyang with a smile. Yeah, I can feel the changes. The agate star area is in a critical time, but it's good for my realm anyway, said Yang Tian Emperor arrogantly. That year, when Yang Tian Emperor bid farewell to Shiyang, he had received the despair inheritance in agate star area. After that, he had begun to challenge the warriors with higher realms than his. He had never been defeated. After each battle, he learned something new from the power of despair. He had defeated many experts whose realms were higher than his. The last opponent he met had a secret treasure that contained the soul-rotting aphides. Although he killed the enemy, the soul-rotting aphides invaded his brain. Fortunately, Shang Chen had received instructions from the bloodthirsty force to seal his body. Otherwise, his soul altar would have been gnawed, which could have destroyed him utterly. While talking, the two of them continued to move through the space bridges at speeds even faster than light. In a blink, they crossed several life stars. In a breath, they could travel trillions of miles. A familiar star appeared in their sights. There were so many battleships of different forces that were anchored outside this star. Shiyang could sense many auras that he had missed. He cheered up. Here we are. Shiyang could relax now. Chapter 1200, The King is Back. Chapter 1200, The King is Back. Today, the Devil Blood Star was completely different from other days. Many battleships were anchored outside the star. They were in many shapes and styles. Some were shattered. Some looked patched up as if they were just fixed after a terrible damage. The warriors from different races and forces scattered around Devil Blood Star. They had packed and crowded this planet as much as they could. The number of creatures in Devil Blood Star had increased quickly. Big and small, they shared the place and cultivated. Even before he had entered Devil Blood Star, Shiyang found that the star was now heavily guarded. He could see many war chariots patrolling in the atmosphere. Soul consciousness wove in the sky like a net. Shiyang felt like he couldn't even hide. Apparently, Devil Blood Star had become the only hope of many forces in Agate Star area. The forces and races from all around the world congregated here. They were preparing to fight against the God Clan. During this time, Devil Blood Star had so many people that any type of character, good or bad, could be found. Even though they were under a massive pressure from the God Clan, many warriors on Devil Blood Star were hot-tempered. They could fight each other even after a word. The enormous pressure had almost cracked people's nerves. Today, they were standing on the edge and were about to collapse. As soon as Shiyang and Yang Tian Emperor appeared, a monster warrior had spotted them. He screamed and rode his war chariot to approach them. That monster warrior was a member of Brutal Dragon Tribe. They met Shiyang once. When he recognized Shiyang, he was so happy that he had almost cracked. He controlled his war chariot faster to see him. His war chariot carried many other warriors who were patrolling with him. Seeing his reaction, they were startled as they thought that he had just found something dangerous that made him crazy. They then watched Shiyang with great caution. They were ready to capture him for an interrogation. The monster warrior yelled at his teammates. He had to explain to the warriors from the other forces for a while. Then, he washed his face and bent servilely to greet Shiyang. Finally, you're back, sir. Please get on the war chariot. The warriors who he had told off dropped their jaws. This dude is a member of Brutal Dragon Tribe. Wasn't he always arrogant? Why was he servile to a human kid? Is he completely insane under the pressure of the God Clan? Shiyang just smiled and nodded to him before hopping onto the war chariot with Yang Tian Emperor. The dragon warrior then shouted and took the wheel, madly riding the war chariot to the center of Devil Bloodstar. Dash! Blood Devil was soaking his entire body in the blood pond. He was using the torrential currents of the viscous blood in the pond to increase his blood chi. Unfortunately, the effect of the blood pond was limited. The blood chi created from the blood pond couldn't help him condense more immortal demon blood. He couldn't use the demon blood to wash his body. Thus, he couldn't promote the real intimidating power of the immortal demon warriors. Gut and Bath of the monster clan stood by the blood pond. They sighed from time to time as they didn't know what to do with the current situation. Recently, more and more warriors from different clans came to take shelter at Devil Bloodstar. The remaining warriors of the other forces had gathered here. They had almost taken over Devil Bloodstar. Those who had lost the battle with the God Clan in their lifestar didn't dare to stay anymore. They had traveled thousands of miles to seek shelter in Devil Bloodstar. The Fire Clan, the Ice Clan, the Wood Clan, and many other clans had united into one force before. They had guarded another area of Agate Star area. However, the God Clan had defeated them. They had come here with the remaining shattered battleships that survived the terrifying war. Currently, all of them had arrived in Devil Bloodstar. For the time being, Devil Bloodstar was packed. Those warriors who suffered a tragic defeat had to bear enormous pressure. They felt so distressed and hopeless. Sometimes, they burst out like a bunch of crazy people. If someone provoked them, they wouldn't hesitate to slaughter the opponent in Devil Bloodstar. During this time, the forces and races sheltering here had lost several hundred warriors due to pointless disputes. They were on edge and easy to collapse. If they didn't have the ghost-like shadow of the God Clan in their minds, the issues here would have escalated to something that they could never fix. The leaders of those forces and races were outstanding warriors who were very famous in Agate Star area. Their position and status were even higher than that of Blood Devil and Bath. After they had come here, many things happened that made Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut feel like their hands were tied. The three of them couldn't control the others. Helplessly, they then saw that Devil Bloodstar was gradually taken over. Blood Devil wanted to break through to third sky of incipient God realm to use his intimidating power to control his planet once again. He had talked to Fu Wei of Potion and Tool Pavilion to confirm the God Clan's commotions continuously. Gut and Bath came to the Blood Pond to find Blood Devil to discuss some important matters. Seeing Blood Devil cultivating, they didn't hurry to bother him and they just waited for him in silence. Rumble. 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 The rumbling sounds of a war chariot came from above their heads. Besides the noise, they heard someone screaming strangely. Gut became ferocious. He stood up and scolded, "Those damn outsiders think that Devil Bloodstar is their backyard garden. The blood pond is the prohibited area. They dare to swagger here. Those curs. We should expel them and let them live or die on their own." Bath was also enraged. He lifted his face and thunder. A dragon roar echoed wildly and created terrifying sound waves that attacked that war chariot directly. Bath was outraged. No one knew Gut and Bath had their power and realm increase recently and continuously even though they didn't do anything. Sometimes, after one night, they felt that their power had increased to another level. They thought that it was just a hallucination. However, during the recent battles they were startled to know that their overall competence had been enhanced vigorously. It was also the reason why Blood Devil had to hurry to go to the blood pond and cultivate. Until now, the friendship between Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut was really good and their overall competences weren't much different. After many years, it was always like that. However, when Blood Devil fought with Bath and Gut, he felt he didn't have enough power. He was the first one who had recognized Bath and Gut getting much stronger. He had even asked them if they had cultivated the secret technique or swallowed any panacea of the monster clan. When Blood Devil heard Bath and Gut said that they didn't do anything, he couldn't stand still anymore. He had to train harder in the blood pond. He could recognize the pressure from Bath and Gut. Anyway, Bath and Gut had the same pressure, which wasn't less than what Blood Devil had. Barth and Gut often talked to Ghost Hunter. Recently, they found that Ghost Hunter's chi, spirit, and soul had changed subtly every day and he couldn't hide his increasing power. Barth and Gut could feel the intimidation from Ghost Hunter. The sound waves shot to the sky and carried the wild and brutal power that could smash the war chariot instantly. Hey! Hey! The brutal dragon warrior on the war chariot discolored. Seeing the sound wave attacking, his scalp felt so numb. Warriors of the different forces discolored in fright. After Shi Yang and Yang Tian Emperor got on the war chariot, Shi Yang asked them to find Blood Devil immediately. The brutal dragon warrior knew Blood Devil was cultivating in the blood pond. As he knew Shi Yang's identity, he had broken many rules of Devil Bloodstar and took him directly there. The warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion and Divine Light on War Chariot were so worried. They didn't know what brutal dragon warrior wanted to do. Here comes trouble. Barth had struck directly from the blood pond. He wanted to smash this war chariot. Don't worry. Shi Yang was still calm. He opened his mouth to spurt out a starlight ball. The brilliant starlight ball spun and impacted upon the sound wave immediately. A dragon roar reverberated that shook the entire place. The starlight ball shattered instantly. Billions of light dots shot out like a sprinkle. Barth's sound wave impacted with the starlight ball and then dissolved. Who dares to act rashly in the blood pond? Don't you know that it's the prohibited land? I don't care who you are. You have to bear the consequences. As Barth saw his attack being dissolved, his face darkened as he shouted. People on the war chariot were filled with fear. The warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion and Divine Light were desperate. They knew that it was a tragic death if they messed up with that old dragon. They knew how savage the brutal dragon and the evil dragon leaders were. They also knew how ferocious those two old dragons were. Barth, you're still hot-tempered. Shi Yang laughed. As Barth grimaced, he was stunned when he heard Shi Yang's laughter. It sounded familiar. When the war chariot came closer, he finally saw Shi Yang. Barth jumped up and laughed. OF*CK, the kid is back. Gut also beamed an honest smile. The two old dragons immediately soared up into the sky and landed grumblingly on the war chariot. They grabbed Shi Yang by his shoulder and took him to the ground. They had even rubbed his skin and squeezed his muscles curiously. The other warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion and Divine Light gawked. They looked at Shi Yang as if they were watching a monster. Greetings, Chief, Precursor Barth. The brutal dragon warrior bowed to them respectfully. Gut waved his hand and dismissed the others impatiently. Go away. Don't linger here to irritate me. Yes, sir. The brutal dragon warrior rode the war chariot, roaring and flying away. Who's that? Yeah, the two precursors of the monster clan seem to know him well. What's going on? Who's he? What is his identity? The brutal dragon warrior wore a cold and arrogant face. He glanced at the other and snorted, he's the one who had disappeared for 10 years. Everybody was shocked. Leona's master? Of course, he is. Oh boy, he's back. Everybody became thrilled. They jumped off the war chariot and attempted to bring the news to their superiors. They were all excited. Today, Leona was very famous. She was even more famous than Blood Devil, Gut, and the other leaders of the forces around the star area. However, Leona listened to a mysterious man and he was a legend. 10 years ago, they first encountered the God Clan. He was the one who had sealed the God Clan's space passage and seized the departed spirit jellyfish. He had become a legend of Agate Star area. After several victories from Leona, the rumors about this legendary character had become more of a fantasy. Today, he was back. When they were hopeless and in need of a force the most, the legend that had disappeared for 10 years returned to Devil Bloodstar. Chapter 1201, The Boiling Blood Pond. Chapter 1201, The Boiling Blood Pond. The blood pond bubbled where Blood Devil's majestic body was soaking. His paws were taking in the blood while his face was as red as real blood. Blood chi circulated through his veins with the explosions like an erupting volcano. Barth and Gut stood by the blood pond. They looked so happy. They patted Shi Yang's shoulder and screamed, "Excellent! You're at third sky of ethereal god realm now. Kid, you're a little monster. You've reached third sky of ethereal god realm from first sky after just 10 years. That's 2 realms. Where did you go?" "Holy sh**t. I want to go there to cultivate too." Gut and Bath didn't know that Shi Yang had gone to Desolate. That year, Shang Chen came and left shortly after. He didn't explain things clearly. Of course, Shang Chen thought that he didn't need to explain to the others. Shang Chen was a universal traveler. He had wandered around for years without a permanent residency. He didn't care about many people. In Agate Star area, Bath, Gut, and Blood Devil were the outstanding warriors, but Shang Chen had met many more intimidating experts, which meant that the others were just juniors to him. Shang Chen wouldn't say much to juniors. Until now, Agate Star area was still closed to the world out there. Thus, they didn't know many things or about the existence of the marvelous Desolate. Gut and Bath were astounded because of Shi Yang's advancement. As they were the experts with powerful monster bodies, they deeply knew how strong his body was when they patted Shi Yang's body. His flesh wasn't weaker than their monster bodies. Also, they had a strange feeling. When they saw Shi Yang today, they had a dear feeling for him that they couldn't explain. It felt like Shi Yang was the one with the closest relationship to their lives. This feeling had no cause. It was like a seal existing in their bloodline. They wore contemplating faces. Shi Yang also had a feeling. But it was different from Bath and Gut. When the two of them touched him and patted him, Shi Yang had a strange feeling as if he was watching his grandchildren play. This feeling baffled Shi Yang and made him feel awkward. Gut and Bath were members of the monster clan. The brutal dragon tribe and the evil dragon tribe consisted of the most savage dragons of the dragon clan. The Azure Dragon, the ancestor of the dragon clan, was one of the precursors of the heavenly monster tribe. The brutal dragon tribe and the evil dragon tribe had descended from the Azure Dragon. They had been mixed with the other races too. Tracing back to their roots, the monster warriors living in the major star areas were the hybrids of the heavenly monster tribe with the other races. Gradually, they had built new races and tribes. Although the brutal dragon tribe and the evil dragon tribe had the holy beast Azure Dragon's blood, it wasn't pure. Thus, they weren't called Heavenly Monster and were instead just Monster Clan. The current Monster Clan had the bloodline of Heavenly Monster Tribe. Gut and Bath also had that impure bloodline. No matter what, they still more or less had the blood of the Heavenly Monster Tribe in their bodies. Thus, they had gained benefits from the marvelous changes of Grace Mainland. The purer their blood was, the more benefits they could receive, just like what the hiding Heavenly Monster Tribe had. Although their blood wasn't pure, warriors like Gut and Bath also received some benefits. However, most of the monster warriors now had little blood of the Heavenly Monster Tribe mixed through too many generations. It was completely gone, so they couldn't receive any boost to improve their competence from the changes of Grace Mainland. Shi Yang's co-soul had fused with the origin of Grace Mainland, which had helped Shi Yang experience the ups and downs of the continent through billions of years. Grace Mainland was the cradle of the Heavenly Monster Tribe. As Gut and Bath had the blood of the Heavenly Monster Tribe in their bodies, they had such wonderful feelings. Shi Yang understood it all of a sudden. "Shi Yang, you disappeared for 10 years. Do you know how Agate Star area is currently? The Agate Star area can't endure it anymore." Gut and Bath shouted. Shi Yang waved his hand and spoke to them. "We won't talk about this now." The other two were so surprised. "Precursors, have you recognized that your realm and power have been changing recently?" Shi Yang became earnest. The two old dragons were bewildered. They looked skeptical for a while and then continued, "Yeah, something is changing. I don't know why, but when we cultivate, it feels much easier. We can gather earth and heaven energy faster. Our realms are increasing subtly too. It seems like someone hiding in the darkness is giving us a hand." "Yeah, it's hard to describe, though," Bath nodded. Shi Yang grinned. He had confused Bath and Gut as the two old men thought that they were wrong. "It's not your hallucination. You guys will see. That marvelous feeling still exists and it's getting clearer day by day. Shi Yang told them solemnly. Your body has the bloodline of the heavenly monster tribe. This bloodline will help you receive boosts. It turns out that I didn't make a wrong guess. It seems, the heavenly monster tribe will become stronger rapidly. Heavenly monster tribe? Gut was stunned. He mumbled, the precursors in our monster clan, the strongest ones, are called heavenly monster. To our clan, heavenly monster is just a title of the best warriors in the clan. You say, it's a new race? The ancestral land of the heavenly monster tribe was Grace Mainland. Those heavenly monsters had left Grace Mainland in the immemorial epoch. One by one, they jumped into outer space and drifted away in the vast sea of stars. Their bloodline had blended with other races. At the same time, branches of the monster clan had mated and evolved into the monster clan that scattered around the major star areas. Gut and Bath were born in Agate Star area. They had never been to Grace Mainland. Due to the conservative state of Agate Star area, they knew nothing about the heavenly monster tribe and they didn't know that the heavenly monster experts in their legends were actually one of the most powerful creatures in this world. I'll explain later. Shi Yang smiled and walked to the blood pond. Blood Devil was still cultivating there. He didn't even notice Shi Yang's arrival. His paws were taking in and out blood to refine his bones and veins. 3 blood essence crystals emerged from Shi Yang's fantasy sky ring. They looked like crystals without any principle of shape. They had a vivid, beautiful red hue as if they contained real drops of blood moving inside. They looked strange with the stink of real blood. At the same time, they had a terrifying blood halo. Boom, boom, boom. The blood essence crystals turned into 3 refined bloodlight that shot towards the blood pond. Magically, as soon as the stones fell into the blood pond, the blood inside the pond boiled vehemently. Bubble. The fist-sized blood bubbles emerged and exploded, releasing a thick blood mist with the abundant blood chi. After a dozen seconds, the blood chi in the blood pond expanded and turned into a misty curtain covering the entire pond. The blood pond was still boiling as if it was cooking Blood Devil's body. Blood Devil looked like a red shrimp while his paws were discharging dregs and contaminants like spider threads. After the dirty threads oozed out of his paws, they melted and disappeared. The blood became bright and it gave people a feeling that they were watching something both sinister and beautiful. The drops of blood seeped into Blood Devil's veins and bones, refining his body and creating more immortal demon blood. Gut and Bath observed the entire process. They saw Shi Yang throw 3 beautiful red stones into the pond and change it massively. Blood Devil's essence chi had reached the upper limit. The smell of blood in this area had soared up into the sky. A red light shot up from Blood Devil's head and reached the sky. It looked like a blood column had just touched the sky and created a new wonder. The blood-terrifying aura covered the entire sky. Blood Devil's blood chi rose like an erupting volcano, shooting out of the blood pond, which had sent a vibe to the souls of many experts in Devil Bloodstar. They felt so worried for him. The warriors with close relationships with Blood Devil hurried to the place and prepared to guard for him. They knew that Blood Devil was about to break through to the next level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a commotion in this critical time. Many leaders of the other forces who were on Devil Bloodstar came. The war chariots were hissing and roaring in the sky of the planet while profound experts were flying to the place on their own. Instinctively, they gathered by the blood pond. Oh, he's made a big commotion. Gut rubbed his head. Summon the experts of the monster clan and demon clan immediately. I guess Blood Devil's commotion will attract those bastards. Just 3 small stones. See how tremendous they could create. Bath was still absorbed in fear. He shook his head instinctively as if he couldn't understand this. They all had keen eyes. From the energy surging on Blood Devil's body, they knew he could break through to 3rd sky of incipient God realm. 3 blood essence crystals aren't enough to help him reach 3rd sky of incipient God realm. It's over my estimation. It seems like I have to pay generously. Shi Yang rubbed his chin and pondered, then, Bath and Gut saw him taking more blood essence crystals. 4 pieces this time. Shi Yang threw the 4 crystals into the blood pond, making it boil even harder like a real erupting volcano. The blood qi diffusing was so astonishing. After they had arrived here, Yangtian Emperor had kept silent all the time to observe Blood Devil. As they were members of the immortal demon clan, he was so curious about Blood Devil at second sky of the incipient god realm. He wanted to observe him and see if he could find something that could support his realm or overall competence. When Shi Yang threw 4 blood essence crystals to the pond at the same time, Yangtian Emperor discolored. He couldn't help but shout, could he endure that? In the cold place of the North Zone, Yangtian Emperor had healed his damaged body with 1 blood essence crystal and also condensed many drops of immortal demon blood. He knew how strong the stone was, so he was afraid that Blood Devil couldn't endure it. Shi Yang's face was so solemn. He took a deep breath and then spoke. His reaching 3rd sky of incipient god realm. It's very dangerous. When breaking through, blood qi is what he needs the most of to support the process. He needs an enormous amount of energy because it will drain quickly. He needs many blood essence crystals. I think he can endure it. Yangtian Emperor was surprised. He contemplated for a while and then nodded. Right, his realm is much higher than mine. 2nd sky of incipient god realm. Right, he should take risks for once. Receiving the 7 blood essence crystals, the terrifying blood qi in the blood pond had shrouded the entire sky and earth. The void above the blood pond looked like it was painted with fresh blood. The light in this area had also changed into the color of crimson, dyeing the nearby plants red altogether. Experts of the other forces from around Devil Bloodstar came here. They all wore grey faces as the scene here had shocked them. The entire blood-red world had struck their sight and gave them a strange, bizarre feeling. They didn't even dare to step closer as they were afraid that the blood would stain them or the evil energy would affect their minds. They stood by the place, watching and screaming. They wanted to know what was happening to Blood Devil. Chapter 1202, Shi Yang draws a circle by the blood pond. Chapter 1202, Shi Yang draws a circle by the blood pond, _ What's going on? It seems like Blood Devil is about to break through. A breakthrough at this moment. So daring. Yes, the God Clan's battleships can be here at any moment. It's not a good time to do that. If he can break through smoothly, it will be fine. 3rd sky of incipient God realm is something too awesome to expect. Well, some people don't want Blood Devil to break through successfully. The crowd started to clamor. The leaders of the other forces had followed the blood column shooting into the sky to come here. They gathered and stood by the edge of the blood pond to watch and discuss. They were from the major forces that were based near the blood pond. A beefy body covering in a fiery flame shot over like a meteor. He floated arrogantly above people's heads. Chief of the Fire Clan, Yang Kai. From underneath, many leaders of the small forces boiled up. Their clamor also quieted down with a respectful visage. The Fire Clan was the strongest clan that all warriors in Agate Star area recognize. Although Monster Clan and Demon Clan were intimidating in Agate Star area, they couldn't be compared to Fire Clan. The other powerful forces like Divine Light, Fighting League, the Wood Clan, and the Ice Clan were also weaker than the Fire Clan. There was a saying that the Fire Clan was the native force in Agate Star area. This clan controlled Agate Star area and it would never change. Yang Kai was the chief of the Fire Clan, an expert at 3rd sky of incipient God realm. He was confirmed as one of the strongest experts here. In the war with the God Clan this time, Potion and Tool Pavilion, Divine Light, Fighting League, Monster Clan, and Demon Clan had joined hands to fight against the enemy. The Fire Clan cooperated with the Wood Clan, Dark Spirit Clan, and Ghostmark Clan to create another force where the Fire Clan was the leader. If the Blood Legion commanded by Leona had troubled the God Clan a lot, the Fire Clan was the rope that had stopped the God Clan's iron shoes and made them take each step with great difficulty. The Fire Clan had declared to defend Agate Star area until they died. Yang Kai made his statement that even if the Fire Clan was uprooted, they would never leave Agate Star area. The Fire Clan had earned respect from many other forces around Agate Star area. If the God Clan hadn't sent more corps, the Fire Clan could have endured for a while. Unfortunately, The Fire Clan had borne a massive loss in the battle half a year ago. Their clan was damaged badly. They had to move to Devil Bloodstar and join hands with Blood Devil to prepare for a suicidal battle against the God Clan. Yang Kai looked as if he was made of lava and fire. He had a drawing of a flaming sun on his chest. This clan worshipped the sun and took in the power of the sun. However, they had the other power Upanishad rather than only the fiery sun or the fire power. The clansmen of the Fire Clan had cultivated different powerful Upanishads. They could cultivate the power Upanishads of sharp metal, gravity, or earth, and more. At the same time, they could fuse their powers with the god power of the sun. This clan was truly formidable. As soon as Yang Kai emerged, the other leaders of the smaller forces held their breaths and lifted their heads to watch him with great respect. Unfortunately, this clan wasn't a clan that understood how to fight in a formation. They didn't know how to join and cooperate with other forces. The Fire Clan was too haughty. The space passages that connected Agate Star area to the world outside were sealed by this clan. Although this clan was really strong, they had a lot of disadvantages. If the Fire Clan had promoted relationships with other star areas or if they had studied guild combat, they wouldn't have been trounced in that battle. Yang Kai stood upright under the garnet sky like a flaming rock that could burn 1,000 years. He earned respect from people together with hatred. A cold aura diffused when another person arrived. It was an old woman of the Ice Clan. She was the current chief of the Ice Clan, Bing Jie. She was well known for her cold and unfeeling character. Not many people liked her. The Ice Clan wasn't far from Devil Bloodstar. Before the God Clan's invasion, Blood Devil, Bath, and GUT used to have a conflict with the Ice Clan. They held grudges. Because of the common enemy, they had to unite. Apparently, right from the start, Bing Jie hadn't cooperated with Potion and Tool Pavilion and Blood Devil. She had chosen to go with the Fire Clan. Due to the terrible defeat, she had to retreat and defend at Devil Bloodstar. She didn't dare to return to their star. After Bing Jie had arrived, she nodded to greet Yang Kai. She threw a glance at Blood Devil and said harshly, "He still has the mood to cultivate at this moment. I don't know what he has in his mind. How could the personal competence contribute to this kind of star war? Even if he can reach third sky of incipient god realm, he would be worn out and then killed." Everybody knew Bing Jie had a bad mouth and she didn't have a good relationship with the Demon Clan, so no one was surprised when she said that. A sparkling warrior appeared who stood between Yang Kai and Bing Jie. She was a member of the Crystal Clan whose skin was transparent. If she didn't wear a thick silky dress, people could even see her internal organs. This woman looked mildly beautiful. Her exposed neck and arms were transparent and people could see her crystal-like veins and bones. She looked awesome, indeed. She was the chief of the Crystal Clan, Jin Yuan. The Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan had formed an alliance together with Potion and Tool Pavilion, Divine Light, and Fighting League. However, the God Clan had defeated them. The God Clan wouldn't be here that quickly. If he can reach third sky of incipient God realm, he will be very helpful. I'm just afraid in the case that he fails. If he fails, it will be a big strike to our warriors. Jin Yuan sighed and frowned reluctantly. Demon Clan is always a stupid clan. I think you guys are stupid too if you are counting on them to overturn the situation. Harumph. Bing Jie hissed. Her cold voice spread out so everybody could hear her clearly. Yang Kai frowned but he didn't answer. He knew that Bing Jie had always objected to the idea of taking shelter in Devil Bloodstar. She thought that they should find a perilous place to stay and resist the God Clan. She assumed that the territory of the Ice Clan was much more suitable. Bing Jie had persistently requested the Union to go to the Ice Clan's territory. They could adjust their forces and fight the God Clan there. Yang Kai objected to her idea. After they had arrived at Devil Bloodstar, Bing Jie didn't stay calm. The current serial assaults were all related to clansmen of the Ice Clan. Yang Kai knew the cause. Bing Jie thought that their union should be the leaders and not Potion and Tool Pavilion. Currently, Devil Bloodstar was sheltering many complex forces and small clans. They gathered here to resist the God Clan, but their plans weren't clearly defined. Devil Bloodstar had 3 forces at the moment: the Union of the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan led by the Fire Clan, the Union of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Fighting League, Divine Light, Monster Clan, and Demon Clan, and one bigger force consisting of many other smaller forces everywhere. When the war took place, they hadn't been dependent on any party. They just defended themselves. After the God Clan defeated them, they moved to Devil Bloodstar. This force was scattered, but it was huge. If they could unite into one group, it would be very powerful. Currently, both unions wanted to take the leading role. They had started many discrete competitions in Devil Bloodstar. Under the enormous pressure of the God Clan, those people still didn't want to unite. They thought that they were the one who could lead a force to defeat the God Clan. They didn't want to submit to the other. Thus, many battles happened on Devil Bloodstar, which were proactively caused by the warriors of the Fire Clan and Potion and Tool Pavilion. Bing Jie was talking harshly, and all the leaders of the smaller forces on the ground could hear her. No one spoke after that. They frowned as if they were considering the situation. They had to choose the right side. While they were keeping silent, Fu Wei, Bettina and Feng'an of Potion and Tool Pavilion, and Feng Han, Miao Rong, and Qizhi of Fighting League came together with Lin Xin, the master of the Divine Light. They hovered in the void by the blood pond. No one had ridden a war chariot. They were floating in the sky and showing their power. As soon as Fu Wei, Feng Han, and Lin Xin arrived, Bing Jie's face got colder. She shut her mouth and didn't say more. Suddenly, both parties of Yang Kai, Bing Jie, Jin Yuan, Fu Wei, Feng Han, Lin Xin, and the leaders of the small forces on the ground quieted down. They all gazed at the 2 people in the blood pond, Blood Devil and Shi Yang. Besides the earth-shaking commotion that Blood Devil had created, they had hurried to come here because they had received news of Shi Yang's return. Fu Wei, Feng Han, and Lin Xin knew Shi Yang well. They knew his ability and his connection with Shang Chen. In a critical, life-and-death moment, Shi Yang reappeared in Agate Star area. All of them thought that it wasn't a normal event. They had to come here as soon as possible. Yang Kai, Bing Jie, and Jin Yuan also knew about Shi Yang. The only reason why they appreciated him was that Shi Yang was Leona's master. Shi Yang's identity wasn't important to them. However, his identity as Leona's master made them cautious when treating him. Leona's Blood Legion had proven their power in resisting the God Clan multiple times, and only Leona had this capacity. Today, Leona's master was back. How could they not behave? The experts were floating under a dark red sky while the leaders of the small forces stood by the blood pond to watch the situation. The atmosphere became tense. Right at this moment, Shi Yang, the focus of the crowd, indifferently stepped to the edge of the blood pond. He walked around 10,000 meters away from the pond and then floated up into the air. He extended his hand and drew a circle surrounding the blood pond. A light ring as red as blood appeared in the void. The light ring was red as if it was made of fresh blood. The scent of blood diffused together with a strange, evil red hue. The light ring around 10,000 meters away from the blood pond looked as if blood was dripping from it. Everybody looked at it in astonishment. They didn't know why he had drawn a circle all of a sudden. However, when they saw the blood halo expanding immensely, they all winced. Even Gut and Bath were bewildered. The 2 old dragons rubbed their heads and guessed what Shi Yang wanted to do. After the bloodlight was formed, Shi Yang descended. Lifting his head to look at Yang Kai, Bing Jie, Jin Yuan, Fu Wei, Feng Han, and Lin Xin, then the other leaders of the small force, he said calmly, "Anyone who crosses this bloodline will die." You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.